You see athletes that go bankrupt and just spend money on the most ridiculous things.
After 3 years pro, bankrupt, divorce, 3 years. Post-career, I think it's 70%.
What happens when your world revolves around being a champion, only for it to be turned upside down by a career-ending injury?
Trust yourself. Don't worry about what's back there. Use the lessons you learn, implement those into your life today and in the future, and continue to grow.
Don't take life so serious. Don't care so much about what other people think.
Christopher Pronger is a name that resonates with hockey greatness, a Hall of Famer, a Stanley Cup champion, and a two-time Olympic gold medalist. But after battling post-concussion syndrome and vision impairment, the legendary defenseman had to step away from the game he loved.
There's a big renaissance right now with people saying, oh, coffee's bad. Depends on who you talk to.
I don't know what the future holds for my body, but I do firmly believe that by looking at my system and how I can keep that all at bay and calm that from within, I'm doing a good job.
His wife, Lauren, stood by his side through the highs and the devastating lows, helping him navigate life beyond the rink.
It would be a disservice to who I am as an individual if I was not here sharing my story, and it is my mission and like everything that I'm passionate about in serving people. I'm excited about it.
In this special episode, we not only hear from Chris but also Lauren as they open up about the reality of life after hockey, the physical and emotional toll, and how their relationship became their strongest defense. This is a story of resilience, partnership, and redefining success after the final buzzer sounds.
Welcome to Success Story. I'm your host, Scott Clary. The Success Story podcast is part of the HubSpot podcast network. I'm also a big user of HubSpot products. They've supported the show for over 3 years now. And for all entrepreneurs out there, I need you to go back to a time and place when building businesses, as tough as it is, can be sometimes a little bit fun. When you're marketing, it should be fun. But marketing is not so fun anymore because it's very time consuming, it's very difficult, and it feels like there's just a lot of friction. Content was simpler to make, leads were easier to capture, and we weren't all spread so thin. As marketers, as entrepreneurs, the bottom line is that marketing used to be fun. It's not so fun anymore. But with HubSpot's newly launched marketing and content hubs, I've been using it myself, it brings a little bit of fun and creativity back into marketing for your business. You're going to generate better content, they're going to generate more leads and next level results, which really make marketing fun again. So with tools like Content Remix, you can turn existing assets into all new pieces with just one click. Lead scoring helps you shine a light on the leads that are most likely to purchase, and analytics suites they built out will help you with reports, KPIs, and just a gold mine of AI-powered insights. It's quick to get your results. It's easy to use. It connects all your teams and your data. So put the fun back into your marketing funnel with HubSpot. Visit HubSpot.com to get started for free. Usually I dive right into it, but because of the dynamic, both of you are on here, I think it's good just to talk about how you met. And that's going to tell a lot about origin stories, where you both came from. So let's start there. So how did you guys meet?
Wow. What a great way to start.
What a way to steal my question.
You want me to start and you'll finish? Or?
Yes, I always add some color in.
All right, she'll add color. So after a game, the backup goalie and I used to hang out a lot, and he went out with a couple buddies from the other team. I was going home. I knew her friend who liked our backup goalie. And so she was calling me as I'm driving home. I'm like, well, I'm just about home, I'm not going out tonight. Jamie may come later, I don't know. But, you know, you're happy to, if you want to come over and hang out, feel free, you know, because she's like, yeah, I got a friend with me. I'm like, okay, fine, you know, just come on over, whatever. And I'm, you know, got my suit on and everything, and I'm walking over to the door, and I'm like, well, what if she's good looking? The friend. And I'm like, and sure enough, I walk over, I get to the door, I'm like, great, she's good looking. And so we just hung out that night for about 6 hours and chatted.
Good first date.
Yeah, it was a great first date, and yeah, unannounced first date. And got to talking. There was nothing, as she likes to say, there was no sparks, weren't flying, but it was a good introductory meeting or encounter, however you want to put it. And we just chatted for like 6 hours. I was planning on going and get a workout in the morning, and then going to, we were catching a flight to go to the West Coast, and I didn't plan on drinking. And the initial meetup one glass of wine turned into 6 bottles of wine, turned into 6 in the morning, turned into me not getting my workout in and getting onto this flight.
Perfect.
It was a impromptu evening with little Lauren here.
How old were you guys?
That was 25 years ago. So,
I was 25.
yes, gosh.
And
I was 21,
No.
22,
Yeah.
22. Yes. So,
Yeah.
yeah. And then from there, what happened? How did we continue
So
on?
then we didn't exchange numbers. We didn't do anything.
After 6 hours, what's wrong with you?
We were just chatting. She's like, all right, I got to go. And I'm like, okay, I got to go to bed. And so I tracked down her number the next day. We got to LA, I tracked down her number. Called, left a message, hey, will you call me back? And back then, by the way, their rotary phone, no cell. I had a cell phone, but she didn't.
Yeah.
And so, I don't even know if they had an answering machine. So left a message with a roommate, hey, can you ever call me? Here's my number. She called me back and I said, hey, we're coming back late Friday night. I'm having a party on Saturday. Would you like to come? And I'm like, Saturday night. And she's like, well, I don't know if I can come Saturday night. I got to pick up a friend from the airport. I'm like, okay. Called her back. Hey, by the way, I'm going to have this party in the afternoon. Why don't you come on over on Saturday afternoon? And you want me to?
I'll add my color to that.
color?
So friend was, I'm always a very transparent individual. So through that 6-hour conversation that we had, I said, I'm just coming off of a 3-year relationship and I am excited at all these things that I'm doing. I'm applying to law school.
At 22.
Yes, and I just...
Significant amount of your life at 22.
Exactly. And I really enjoyed just the conversation with him because I was fascinated by his story and, being a hockey superstar that I was not a big hockey fan, but my brothers were big fans. And so I obviously knew who he was. And he probably was intrigued by the fact that I wasn't like, oh, like all the other girls. And I was kind of like talking to, I don't know, a buddy, a friend. And so at that time when I told him I was just coming out of this relationship, I said, he's coming back in a week. He had been, this ex-boyfriend at the time, had been away interviewing for all these different jobs and different opportunities and so forth. And I said, we are hoping to have a nice friendship when he returns. And I promised to pick him up from the airport on Saturday night. So Chris stored that in his memory bank. And he was like, I got to get in before he comes back on Saturday night. And so I'm proud of him because he did track down my number. And when the phone rang the second time, I knew what he was doing. He was like, I'm getting in before. So I'm not going to name his name. Comes back on Saturday night. So I was like, I kind of like the fact that he's so determined. And I appreciate that. And so I was like, okay, you know what? And my girlfriend in the background was hearing all this. And she's the one that liked his, the backup goalie, was like, yes, we're going. You're going. And I was like, okay, we're coming over Saturday afternoon for a barbecue in January in St. Louis. This is odd, but why not? It's snowing outside, and we went over to his place and I'm telling you, it was like fire, sparks, everything.
After the 6 hours?
Well, you got to remember, I had played 30 minutes that night too, so I was exhausted.
So you weren't being your best, most charming.
Was not prepared.
Did he have it on? I mean, it was impressive. So the two of us were like, you know how you see those cartoons where it's like the googly eyes of the like hearts and everything? We were so locked in. Nothing was distracting us. There was not a soul in the room that could take us away from the conversation we were having. I was like buckled over laughing because he is a very funny individual. And it was just kind of like history from there. And I guess the question is always, did I end up picking him up from the airport that night? I'm asking you guys. No. And 25 years later, he's still sitting to the left of me.
How was it? So you were still very young. You were super young when you started dating. G probably has more questions than me about this, but I mean, athletes get so much attention. So obviously it probably wasn't easy. And I have no idea because I've never gotten that amount of attention at a young age as an athlete. But how do you navigate that? Is that an issue? Is that not an issue? Was it stressful?
Like, you're living my dream teenage life of being a hockey wife. And I've always, loved hockey players. I've loved hockey. Like, I'm Canadian. That was the thing. Yeah. And I always thought, oh man, marrying a hockey player would be so fun. And then the older you get, the more you realize that it's actually very stressful. There's all these millions of women after you're a man. There's attention and travel and time away. How did you deal with all of that, especially at such a young age?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say I've always been a very confident individual. And I think that probably is what attracted Chris to me, because I really was not enamored by you're Chris Pronger. Mm-hmm. I was very comfortable in my own skin of being who I am as an individual, not Chris Pronger's wife. And, it does take a lot to get used to in terms of, the women and the puck bunnies, that we're going to call them that, all the things, and I'm not going to ever sit here and say, our journey was perfect by any means. I mean, I think there were a lot of ups and downs through his career and, road trips and all those things, which I love that I'm a mentor for a lot of wives and girlfriends that are married to professional athletes, because it's not an easy road. And I think nowadays with social media and all they're up against, it makes it that much more challenging. I have such a heart for that. But I think it comes down to, do you really love that individual? Do you want to fight for that relationship? Do you respect each other? Are you really up for, respecting each other on that deep level of, I want to make this work, versus I want to have a quick dopamine fix of these hits of fans. And I think ultimately who Chris is as an individual, as a husband, as a father, as a friend, he's always been bigger than that. And that's the man I married and the man that I love. He's not perfect. I'm not perfect. I'm not a perfect wife. I'm not a perfect mother. But I would say ultimately, when it comes down to it, we knew what was so important and that we truly loved each other. And I say to this day, and I think the two of us feel this way, is whatever life throws at us, we've been through so much. Mm-hmm. And it has been so flawed and so imperfect. But it has taught us the value of saying, bring it on. Go ahead, bring on whatever else you have for us, because we're in for it now. Whatever we have been challenged with, we have been able to overcome it. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a lot of strength in that as a marriage.
I was curious. I mean, even from the athlete's perspective, I would assume that when you're young, it's nice to think that you can go after any woman you want and you get all this fame and you get a lot of money early on in your career that a lot of people really aren't expecting or really know how to handle. But then if you look back, and I'm super curious, Chris, if you feel this way, if you feel like it's actually a blessing to have more of a stable home as an athlete that has to be high performance all the time.
No, absolutely. I think when you look at who you choose to be with and who you select to be with matters a lot, whether you're an athlete or a professional or not. I think just life in general. You have a good partner beside you, you're going to be even more successful because they're going to support you. They're going to help guide and steer you and push you in those difficult moments. And, I think for me, when I look at my career arc, the highest of highs were always with her by my side and helping and steer and guide me and push me and pick me up when I was at my lowest and be there for all the successes as well. And there was a lot of ups and downs and injuries and, championships and the different things that we all know about and can Google. But I think when you look at the life of an athlete, those that have Google's always listening. When you look at the life of an athlete and you see those that struggle the most, they're not selecting for the right reasons. And the ones that do, you see them, I think, have longer careers, more stable careers, and the best post-career lives.
Yeah.
With their families and their spouse.
Well, you see athletes that go bankrupt and just spend money on the most ridiculous thing.
I think the stat is after 3 years pro, bankrupt, divorced, and I forget the third one, homeless, I think it is.
Oh.
3 years. Post-career, I think it's 70%. It's a big number. One of the three. Or a combination.
So actually, funny enough, so Chris, I mean, I've known about Chris as like a hockey player, but actually Chris put out a Twitter thread because he was doing Twitter because of Sam Parr. I think that's the case, because Sam's also from St. Louis, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And you did a tweet thread, whatever, on athlete finances and how much you get taxed and how much goes to your agent, and that thing went viral. And I don't think people did I send that to you? I might have sent it to you.
I've seen that.
Yeah.
But I don't think people realize
Of the take home.
how much money you end up.
I certainly wasn't sitting there saying that woe was me and woe was the athlete, but I was more trying to draw a light, A, for those athletes that we're following, but B, for people to realize how many 18, 19, 20-year-olds that get $1 million or more have the financial wherewithal or understanding of, A, to think responsibly what they're going to do with that money and invest it, and B, are already thinking about retirement when their career is just beginning. I don't know any young athlete or any young person, period, that thinks that way. They're always thinking go, 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 and I'm Superman, I'm invincible, and here we go.
So that's kind of the same wherewithal that you must have had at 25, meeting this woman and being like, hey, I want to give this my all. I want to make sure she feels like she can trust me. She feels safe in this relationship. And like, I'm sure like your success as a couple had a lot to do with how safe you made her feel and how respected you made her feel. Because I mean, it's really not, like, I think a lot of it was on you as the hockey player of the couple to make her feel so like safe being with you long term.
Yeah, and I think that was part of our initial interaction. That 6-hour conversation was just trying to get to know each other. And, I had been dealing with some other stuff in my career at that point too, and just was at home a lot, and was I had just gone through my time in St. Louis early on of being traded there for a fan favorite and getting booed and I'd worked my way through all the adversity to get to this point where now I was the captain and I was kind of the focal point of the team, and my career was starting to take off, and there was obviously a lot of pressure, a lot of outside distraction and things like that, and was probably for one of the first times in my life open to finding a true partner and somebody to call my wife.
Like, that's wisdom at 25.
It is wisdom
at the
at 25.
height of your career.
Yeah.
It is wisdom at 25, because I think that when you go home and it's actually a really interesting thought, because people that don't succeed in life, I've spoken to a whole bunch of really smart doctors on trauma, and the number one indicator of somebody not succeeding is if they have even trauma as a very early kid and they don't have a safe home to go to. And when they go home, there's always stress and anxiety, and that trauma just starts looping in your brain, and then it manifests in all these different messed up, fucked up things as an adult. Yeah. So that safe home environment is so important as a kid, as somebody coming up in their career, anybody that wants to perform at a peak level. Like, I mean, a lot of people listening to this show are entrepreneurs and trying to build. I think most of my success, and I mean, I try and act as the same amount of trauma-free for G, but I think most of my success is attributed to, like, shit hits the fan, and then I come home, and then she's here, and then she sort of sets my head right mentally. So it's not like I didn't have a traumatic childhood, but I'm sure that if I had this super combative, angry relationship where you're like, everything suffers. And you think you're better than it. You think you can sort of like muscle through it, but I don't think many people can if they come home and it's just chaos.
They might for the short bursts here and there, but.
Well, that's how you have that like internal anger, right? That combusts and you take it out on the people that are closest to you a lot of times. Like a lot of people do that. And I feel like that comes from that kind of trauma a lot of times.
Like for me, it's like whenever something doesn't work out, you feel like it's the end of the world. And then you And she's like, no, Scott, stop being an idiot. It's not the end of the world.
That's a different kind of trauma. That's because he came from such a stable, loving, calm, beautiful
I didn't even come
household
from an entrepreneurial
that
background,
he's not
right?
used to a lot of adversity. So he's like, this camera died, like life is over. Like he starts to spiral. And I'm like, listen, that's nothing. There's like way more serious problems out there. But like, he's lucky enough to have come from such a stable, beautiful family that now I have to just like kind of center him and be like, you can't, this is not what we're spiraling about. This is not happening.
There are bigger problems.
Yeah, just perspective.
So maybe even like tell a story, because this is obviously like it pertains to both your lives and careers, but tell a story about like some of the harder things that you've gone through. It could be inside your relationship. It could be, when you were actually still an athlete, you're still playing pro hockey. I mean, you had a lot of health scares too. I'm sure some that only you know about, but there's obviously some that were pretty public as well. So talk about some stories that you went through.
Where would you like to start? There's
Well, I would say probably the one that, he had so many injuries, but the one that was probably the scariest for me as his wife was his career-ending concussion. And we had battled so many times. I can vividly remember the conversations and the arguments and not yelling at each other, but just trying to have this conversation with him with 3 kids in the back of the car as he was driving down the road, and he couldn't really even see the road because he was seeing stars. And we had to pull over, and I had to drive the rest of the way home. And I was always pleading with him on wearing a visor because he had a dear teammate, Al McInnes, who had a very traumatic eye injury, ended his career, correct?
Yep.
And that was one thing that I always feared was his eyes, on top of obviously concussions. And so when that incident happened, I had all 3 kids in the bathtub. We were in Philly, and we always had this rule on school nights where I didn't take the boys to games. And so he was playing, and you were playing in Winnipeg?
No, in Philly.
In Philly.
I don't even think Gina doesn't know the story.
Yes.
We had a home game against your fan favorite Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yeah. My team.
So I had all 3 kids in the bathtub, and Lila was in her little pumpkin, seat in the bathtub and so forth. And Jack wanted to skedaddle off, get his PJs on to start watching the game. And I always let him watch the first period. And so he ran off, got his PJs on, started watching the game. I had George and Lila still in the bathtub. And Jack came running back within 5 minutes, and he just had this look upon his face, tears coming down his eyes. And he was like, Mom, you need to come to the TV. He's like, it's Dad. And I was like, oh my gosh. Okay. So I grabbed, Lila. He was the first one to see it. Grabbed Lila out of her little seat in the bathtub. George jumped out. We all went running down the hallway, and all I remember was seeing the flashbacks of Chris, and he grabbed a towel, and the trainers were out there and covering his face, and his legs were flailing. He was on the ice, and I'll never forget what they were saying. They were like, at this time, we just think about the family and what his wife is going through. And I remember literally buckling to my knees with Lila in my hand and bawling, crying, but please tell me it's not his eye. That's the one thing. I didn't even think about the brain at that time so much. And we really didn't know anything because he left the ice with the towel over his head. And the next thing I know, the trainers were calling me and saying, we just don't know at this time really what the situation is, other than, it's probably something with the eye. There was a lot of blood, a lot of trauma. We can't get him to calm down. He's flailing his skates on the table because they have, those emergency rooms in the underground. What do you call them? The training room. And they have bright lights coming down on him. I can hear him screaming and yelling at the trainers because he is a very physical individual. There were a lot of F-bombs flying around. And I'm trying to get answers. It was just panic all around. I had 3 little kids. Thank God, dear friend, neighbor came over so that I could kind of get down there. And that was probably one of the worst times in terms of injuries for me because I felt so helpless. And we really didn't know what the outcome was going to be because at that time I was all focused on the eye. And he had a massive hematoma and a lot of blood in there. They put an eye patch on him. He came home and they said, let's give him 10 days in the bedroom. Let him sleep it off. and then let's reassess.
And I had to put drops in my eye to disperse the blood and kind of clear my eye up because there was so much.
What actually got hit?
My eye, so the stick, it was a follow through from his stick, and I put my stick out to put the puck in the crowd, and his stick went up my stick, and I could see it coming. And as the stick was getting closer, I saw it moved, and instead it would have shattered my eye socket. Instead, it hit me right directly in the eye. So all the full trauma from the force from the stick just hit me right in the eyeball. So my eye internally was bleeding, and there was a lot of issues with it.
It's wild that didn't blind you.
Yes.
Yeah, I got lucky.
Yeah, that's absolutely wild. Why did you never wear a visor?
Thank you, Scott.
Is that not a thing?
I tried a few times in practice. Like I hurt my knee the one year,
You didn't like it.
and I had surgery, and I'm like, yeah, let me try to wear a visor when I was coming back, and I'm like, I just want to try to get used to it and see if I can wear it, and I couldn't. As funny as it sounds, I never got used to it because I didn't have to.
Yeah.
And so, if it was, okay, you have to wear it, you figure out how you're going to wear it. But I didn't have to wear it, so.
The players going way back when if you didn't have to wear a helmet, you got grandfathered into the old rules. You didn't have to wear a helmet, so they would never put on a helmet.
And I played with the last guy to do that, Craig McTavish in St. Louis.
Oh my God, that's right.
Yeah.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's absolutely wild.
So you were so focused on the eyes because, like, as someone who doesn't know, the eye injury is like something to look out for. Like that happens a lot.
Yeah, I mean, and the doctors are giving me all the, like look out for this and watch. And we were putting drops, and he was sleeping a ton. They had a whole, like gamut of pharmaceuticals, sleep aids, all these things. And so it was really, the two of us when the kids were at school, where I was watching over what was going on. I had seen him go through multiple concussions. I knew all the warning signs and things that he had gone through in the past. And I was like, this is like to a whole new level. This is a concussion on steroids. And giving him, all the drugs, it was just like a bandage and kind of like graying and making a lot of noise to what was really going on there. He was having a hard time even walking to the bathroom and he's a big guy. He's 6'6", 220 pounds. And so I was, trying to help him get to the bathroom, and it was just not a good situation. So I essentially had to be an advocate for him and pulling the trainers aside and talking to the doctors and saying, I think we need to take a bigger look here at what is really going on. It's not just the eye, it's also the brain. There has been a lot of trauma going on there. And had it not been for me really telling them that, I think Chris would have been put back out on the ice. And I know he would always stand up for himself, but he is very much a mind over matter type of individual. He loved the game so much. And I don't blame him. I mean, the smell of the ice, all the things. And he had just signed, a 7-year deal. But, I think you could probably take it from here of like where.
Yeah, so after I got hurt, I did 10 days in my bed, and then I rode my bike at home for day 11. Then I went to the rink and worked out for day 12, skated by myself. Practiced with the team day 14, and then I left on the road trip and played day 15.
Day 15, you were back.
And played in Tampa. Then I played in Florida. Then we played in Carolina. Then we came home and played against Phoenix, and then we went to Winnipeg when they first got their team back, and it was crazy loud in there. And with every game, I was getting worse and worse. And
so it was tough.
Oh yeah, no, I could feel the symptoms were bad. Every game it was getting worse, and I was telling the trainer, I'm like, I don't. At first, you're trying to play it off as, I'm out of shape, 2 weeks off, not doing anything. You're not going to feel like you did before.
Yeah.
And so, I was playing it off a bit to that. And, ultimately, you're in denial and you're trying to come back and play and you want to play. And that game in Winnipeg was the wake-up call where it was just, the building was so loud and I was getting, headaches were bad, and I was really nauseous. And then I started doing stuff that I just completely out of character. I went to take a one-timer and I fell. I went back for a loose puck and I knew the guy was right there, and I still turned casually. If he wanted to, he could have put me through the fifth row, just stuff like that. If I didn't have the rep I had, I definitely would have been in the fifth row. Well, and just things like that I never did. I'm just like, okay, I'm going to get hurt. This is not good.
And as his wife watching these games, And one thing that, and I didn't know a whole lot about hockey, but watching him through the years, being so good at what he did, he had lost that sixth sense. And it was so scary because he was vulnerable out there. And in the past, he always knew 5 plays ahead. And he always knew who was coming at his back, whether they were, distances behind him. And he had lost that ability. And it was so scary because I was like, it's like a bruised peach, and you don't want to have that continue to happen. And I think at that time, it was just,
I could take a quick look, know where everybody is, and I wouldn't have to look again because I'd know how fast that guy's going, know where this guy's going, know where my teammates are going to be, pick up the puck and immediately turn and know where I'm going to go with it. Yeah. Just by taking that quick look. I didn't have that anymore. I couldn't sense where anybody was. Going back, you're like, somebody's got it. Somebody's close to me. You just know, and you kind of tense up and know you're going to get hit or whatever, right? Yeah. I didn't have any of that. It was just gone. And so after that game, I told the trainer, I'm like, something's wrong, man. I gotta go see a real doctor.
And even
and get a full workup and just get checked out.
Do you remember when you were still healing before? I think it was maybe when you had come back. Before you went to the doctor, and the boys came cruising down the back staircase, and you did not know they were coming down?
Yeah, like my kids would scare, normally you sense people around a corner or whatever.
You lost all of it.
Couldn't have, my kids scared the living shit out of me, and I almost slapped my kid because I was so scared. I was scared, came up behind me, and I wasn't expecting it because I couldn't hear them, and just, everything was elevated, and I was like, oh.
Yeah. But that's so scary physically because you feel like you lost something, but then you have the realization that, okay, so what's next?
Yeah. And I'd done a pretty good job of, we had a good glide path as to, finances and things like that, and, what we were going to do post-playing and things of that nature. But I thought I had 2 or 3 year window to kind of get to that. And then it was just like, okay, it's gone.
Yeah.
And, I spent the first, 16, 18 months just working on getting healthy and just trying to, I wasn't so, that was the nice thing about having 5 years left of my contract is I could focus on getting healthy and not worry about any of the other stuff.
Yeah. No, that's and you don't even know the other story when his heart stopped on the ice too.
Oh,
Do you remember the DeMar Hamlin incident? The Buffalo Bills player that collapsed on the field?
It was, 2 years ago?
2 years ago.
Oh, no.
So there's that happened to me 25 years ago.
So we got a puck. You got a puck, and it stopped. It stopped his heart for a second.
So again, this is 1998. So the internet was dial-up still. The internet was dial-up, and it was on Fox. So it was the tracker thing and all that stuff. I blocked a shot. It hit me right in the heart, and in Detroit. So I don't let these people see it in pain, right? So I'm like, get up, cover the puck, get the whistle. In my head, I'm like, get to the bench. But I had blacked out. But on the video, you could see I still stood up. I was trying to get to the bench, and then just collapsed. And the next thing you know, I woke up and I got all my stuff cut open, and I'm staring up at the banners at Joe Louis Arena. And I'm looking around like this, like, what the hell's going on? And I look over at our bench, and like players are crying. I've been laying there for about a minute, not moving, not breathing. And it was, yeah.
See the joys of being married to a professional athlete?
I was just gonna
yes.
say.
Here's all the fun.
You're safe. I'm glad I would not be able to handle all of that.
No, it's stressful.
And that was 2 incidents of 16 surgeries he's had.
Yeah.
A
big shout out to HubSpot and the HubSpot Podcast Network for sponsoring Success Story. If you enjoy Success Story, you're going to enjoy a ton of podcasts brought to you by the HubSpot Podcast Network, including Hustle and Flowchart, hosted by by Joey Fear. The Hustle and Flowchart podcast with Joey is all about how to build a business so it gives you the freedom and fuel for your life. You're going to join Joey as he discusses systems, mindset tweaks, reframes, and strategies for entrepreneurs and really anyone to enjoy the process of being in business and having fun. This isn't for entrepreneurs looking to build a billion-dollar business. It's for somebody who wants to build a lifestyle, somebody who is looking to build systems that work. Listen to Hustle and Flowchart wherever you get your podcasts.
You are so strong. Just like, I mean, you're strong to do all that, but like you are strong as like watching someone you love go through that. Because I can't even watch him like, have a cold. I'm just like, no. Like I would not be able to, like I remember like in high school, like, you date hockey players and this and that. And like they would like get injured and you're like, oh no. And like I would just like not be able to handle it. I was just like, I was a mess. So I'm like, I don't think this is for me.
Were you stressed after, okay, that's a stupid question. You're very stressed. But after the realization that career is going to be different. Life's going to be different. What's going through your head?
Yes and no. I would say knowing who Chris is as an individual and how intelligent he is. Of course, first and foremost was his health. Let's get him healthy. Let's get him back on his feet so he feels optimal. And in terms of believing in him and stress about, well, geez, what does the future hold? Absolutely not. Like 100% have all the faith in him. And I actually thought our life is going to be bigger and better when he gets to launch into this next chapter in his life. Was it earlier than intended? Absolutely. Did that make me sad? 100%. Like nobody wants to be ripped away from their life's passion that early, because Chris had it in him probably to play for another 10 years or longer. I firmly believe it.
How old were you when that?
37 turning 38.
So what Chelios do?
I was not gonna, no. I told them when I signed the contract, I said, I've got 5 years, that's it.
But in terms of intelligence, I mean, and what I know he has the power to do, it was kind of like, I can't wait for the world to see behind the jersey. And so many people don't know that. You all know that a little bit. And I think Chris has always been a very guarded individual. He has a very small circle, and he shares who he truly is with that small circle. But he's at a place in his life now where he is open to sharing more about that side of who he is and what he can offer, which excites me because I'm like, oh my God, please share with the world all your gifts and talents outside of being this incredible, gifted hockey player. And people, when they do get to know him outside of like, oh my God, I was your biggest fan, they're like, damn, he's smart. Damn.
It is unexpected, to be fair.
I mean, it is.
But that's very typecast right there.
Yeah.
Listen, I've been around a lot of them. It is very unexpected.
He's a keeper.
But that's why. Okay, so I mean, Lauren, you have a really amazing story too. So
Wait, one second, sorry.
Yes.
This is another reason why she's a bad bitch.
Yes.
Because not only was she like so supportive about all of that, but she wasn't even freaking out about like his like career, like, ending and all these other things. She was just like, he has even more to offer.
Yes.
Like that is a wife.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah,
I love that.
in your spouse. And I mean, that's when you really know that you've got, somebody that has your best interest at heart and knows the gifts that you offer the world, because we've been around plenty of professional athletes and wives and girlfriends where it has all fallen apart as soon as their career ends. And it's very sad for whatever reason. And but I've always, that was the thing that attracted me, if we were talking about when we first met. And that first 6-hour conversation, I knew this is an incredible individual. Whether I was going to date him or not, I was like, wow, there's a lot more to this guy than My brother's telling me he's the best hockey player on the face of the earth. I'm like, great, whatever. Like, I'm having a beer with him.
What else you got?
Yeah. Show me more. And damn, did he impress me. And I was like, I want to know more of him. And it has been an absolute joy and pleasure to be his number one cheerleader. I know that sounds so corny, but I am very particular in who I support and who I believe in. And I was like, I will back you to the day I die. And I mean it. I just, it's easy to believe in you.
Thank you, babe.
Sorry.
I got your back too.
I just had to give her some props because not only it's like it's just like it sounds like the hardest journey to me because of like all the watching him go through all this pain and all of that and the fans and all that, and then also
It's actually easier to go through it than to watch it. It's much like playing.
Yeah.
When you're immersed in your playing, it's easy. But if you're upstairs and you're watching your teammates and you're watching the game, it's nothing worse. It's way harder doing that and way more tiring.
Yeah.
it's emotionally more taxing.
Yeah.
No, you just have a lot of grace and emotional intelligence, and it shows.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I wanted to go through sort of where you came from and your origin story, because you have a really interesting story too, but that's also what ties into kind of what you do now, because you had a sort of a past of travel and there's a reason for that. I think it's important just to tee that up.
Yeah, no, thank you. I've always had an empathetic heart, and I just am very in tune with my own body, health and wellness. It kind of starts with my journey as a young girl. When I was 6 years old, my father was diagnosed with colon cancer. He was 35, self-made from a small town in Oklahoma. And he, really was a determined individual, very forward thinking. He put himself through school. He was a great wrestler, and he ended up going to law school at WashU in St. Louis, where he met my mom. And he had 3 little kids, built the dream home and all the things. And then he gets his diagnosis at age 35, and very young. And he basically turned to the doctors and he said, if I've got a year or two, if that's the prognosis. And back then they didn't have a whole lot for what he was going through in terms of, procedures and treatments and so forth. It was a lot about chemo and just bazooka his system with chemo. And so he had asked the doctors, he said, when my kids are out of school, can I take those couple of months, like 2-3 months off, and go travel the world? Because he had never seen the world. And he was also thinking about, how can I seek holistic healing methods? Because I'm not getting this in Western medicine and in America. And he was studying a lot about acupuncture, meditation, deep detoxes, saunas, and so forth, as to how do I prolong time for Western medicine to catch up.
This is so early,
Yeah,
So
early 80s. This is so
yeah.
forward thinking, so ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
And so the doctor said, okay, yes, we will give you those 2 months off. And so through my 6-year-old eyes, all I knew was how sick he was when he was on chemo, and the sights, the smells, all the, whether you want to call it post-traumatic stress, I can vividly remember it. And then when we traveled abroad and he was in Asia, he was whole and he was healthy and he was vibrant, he was laughing and enjoying life because he wasn't going through all that. Now, obviously there's a lane for chemo and he needed that. But when he came off of it, through my eyes, I saw travel is magic. It's healing my father. So if you go back to kind of like, that was my first experience of travel. And it gave my father the tools. And I always say, like, building up your holistic tool belt. And now to this day, I have my own, which we'll talk about, I'm sure. But he was the first one to show me that and the power of that. And he took those tools, brought it back when he came back into his treatment with chemo and so forth. And it gave him more time to fight and endure all that he was going through. And then by 3 years, they did have a radical treatment. And the funny part about this story is the doctor who came to St. Louis was named Dr. Butcher. So you got to have some funny side to the story. And so Dr. Butcher said, I'm going to, probably perform this very radical surgery. And if you believe in it, I think I can save your life. And so my father was willing to do that. And with that, he lived until he was 70. He was always compromised with his health and so forth. But he met all 3 of the children. He walked me down the aisle. He met my husband, all these beautiful moments in our life. And as a family, my own family, we all traveled. It wasn't about the gifts under the tree. It was truly about travel and experiences and creating memories together and seeing the world. And the gifts that the world could provide were so much more. And, kind of getting back to my father, it essentially healed my father and gave him what he needed to live his life. And so then when I fast forward to when we met, and Chris was topping the game and so forth, and very regimented on, I have to eat this way, I have to train this way. And so I said, hey, when you're out of the season, this is right before we first met and we're kind of started to date and so forth. And I think we were engaged at that. Yeah. And I said, I'd like to travel with you, and see the world together. And he's like, well, I can't do that. I can't leave all these people I have in place. And this is my regimented situation and so forth. And I said, actually, if you trust me, I think I can teach you a lot of value with what the world can offer in helping kind of take down your central nervous system, whether you learn some holistic healing modalities or methods or things that you don't do in your everyday life that are going to complement your game and make you that much better of a player. And I was like, okay, I'll give you one summer. I was like, okay, it's a done deal. And back then it was like the gyms were the size of a broom closet. They didn't have a whole lot of wellness travel offerings. But we traveled that summer, and then the next year he was MVP of the league, best of the whole league, and he was like, okay. He's like, I can't argue with you. I guess you won.
So you felt it upped your game, some of the stuff that you were doing on that summer.
Yeah, I think you have to realize that there's playing the game, and then there's preparing for the game, and then there's pressure and things of that nature that can affect how you play the game. It's not always just the physical side.
There's now they have sports psychologists.
All of that stuff is all incorporated in kind of what she's talking about, whether it's yoga or breath work or all that.
It must have been from somebody. Okay, this is your only career. This is how you're making money. You're not MVP yet, but you're top of your game, and then your wife is saying, no, forget what not forget, but I have more. Yeah. Even though these trainers have spent their whole lives trying to figure out the exact formula on how to become this best possible hockey player, trust me.
Yes.
By the way, it's funny too. Yeah. You think back then to what they do now, they incorporate all this stuff now, 100%. Which is crazy.
What was the stuff that you were doing when you first did that trip?
Back then it was more about breath work, again, calming the central nervous system. And back then, Chris was very famous for spending a lot of time in the penalty box.
Maybe it was a little intense.
So
when I played.
The mission and the goal was to keep him out of the penalty box for, as much as possible. And
So you meditate, breathe.
Yeah. Meditation, breath work, and just, I feel like he was curious about different diets and nutrition.
I was very, very, very plain Jane with how I ate.
Yes. A lot of yellows, browns, whites. There was no colors of the rainbow.
How did you change that? Because please tell me.
It was slow and steady for sure. So we traveled a lot as a family and as a couple. And I would say social media then started to pick up. And I had my little private account because there were so many puck bunnies and fans and so forth. So Chris was always very protective about, Lauren, keep everything on social media, very locked down. I don't know how these girls do it nowadays, but just recently launched everything and opened everything up. But back then with our private network of other wives and girlfriends from different sports, golf, basketball, baseball, that I was friends with, they were like, wow, this is really amazing what you're doing. And can you curate the exact same trip for our family? Because I'm dealing with the same issues. My husband won't travel because of this reason, this reason, this reason. And he's also curious about how to level up his game. So I started working with, 5 friends, 10 friends, 15, and I knew I was onto something. And it was a niche, untapped market. And at that time, Chris was retired. He had kind of really given me this space and this opportunity to have some time to build out this business. And what a beautiful compliment to our marriage, how things come full circle. And, because I had given up the idea of applying to law schools at that time, knowing that was not the right path for us as a family and a marriage and so forth. And I knew down the road I wanted to have a career of my own. And I didn't need to have a career, but I wanted one. And so it was so wonderful to have Chris really support me at that time. Our kids were that much older. I remember clear as day, I sat down at the dining room table. He was in the kitchen cooking food for the kids. And I just wrote my journey. And it was my story of my father. And here is my vulnerable, raw, real story. And whoever wants to listen, great. And started the business. And he was so supportive along the way. Obviously, Well Inspired Travels comes from the wellness component. Looking back at what my father taught me on wellness and travel, inspiration comes from my father as well. And then the travel side of things. And I'm proud as a pioneer in the industry, a female leader and thought leader of wellness travel before it was a thing back in 2017, really formulated by 2018. And now it's projected to be a $1.4 trillion industry by 2027. And as a female that really, established that space and being the authority before it became a big thing. And then our network is truly professional athletes and high net worth individuals that take their health and wellness very serious. And I come at this approach with two beautiful, unique lenses of the luxury wellness travel advisor and then a luxury wellness consultant with 10 different certifications. And so I kind of have blended both. But I'd love to get into the burnout side of the story, but we can get to that.
We can talk. Yeah, no, I think just to even draw a parallel from professional athlete to business person is understand this kind of travel or the different, how many, what were you calling them again? The health.
Habits. Oh God.
Stacking, yeah.
Okay. So we should probably back up to 2011.
Because these are all been built over years and years and years. And I do want to understand from your perspective as an athlete eventually, how these help performance. Yeah. I think that's a huge piece of it. That's why you're successful. But we can back up. To, because we sort of left off, you're talking about that summer when you convinced Chris to go and you liked the trip or whatever you set up. What was that?
Became MVP.
Became MVP.
Right.
What was that like? What was the first version of Well Inspired Travel?
Yeah. So I would go back to 2011.
Yeah.
And that was truly the genesis of it all. And I like to say, usually the gifts happen in the hardest times and the most imperfect, challenging times in life. And it's scary as hell. But I tell all of my clients and friends, I'm like, lean into that space because something beautiful is about to blossom. And it's hard to believe and it's hard to trust. But in 2011, he had his career-ending concussion. He was bedridden. My dad had a stroke. He fell out of the bed in the middle of the night. Debilitating stroke. My mom had breast cancer. I had 3 little kids. And I was doing all the wrong things, trying to keep up with everybody that needed me. And I had no clue. I'd always been really in tune with health and wellness and staying optimal because of what I witnessed as a little girl with my father. But at that time, you're burning the candle at all ends because I was taking care of him. I was taking care of my dad. I was taking care of my mom, 3 little kids. And I was getting up early in the morning and I was fueling myself with coffee nonstop. I wasn't giving myself proper nutrition. I wasn't eating the rainbow. I wasn't, all the things. I was running instead of lifting weights because that was my stress relief, spiking that cortisol, getting that adrenaline going. I would take it down by drinking a couple glasses of wine when I was trying to cook dinner. And then the ruminating thoughts come at night and you're not sleeping well. So I had essentially turned my whole system upside down. I had flipped my circadian rhythm. My cortisol was up in the middle of the night and down in the day. I was a hot mess. And my thyroid had gone kaput. I had never had any of this go on in my whole life. And it was at that time where I went to my internist and she looks at all my blood work. And we were talking about blood work earlier and how important it is as females. And I appreciate Western medicine doctors. And she was trying to help me. But the quick fix Band-Aid was, here's sleep aids, here's anti-anxiety, here's antidepressants. And I said, thank you. And I really think she was trying to help me, but I was like, it's not what I want. And that's when I went back to school. So to answer your question that's when I started on the journey of knowledge is power. And I went and I applied to the Institute of Integrative Nutrition in New York, and I took their flagship program. Year 1, very intense. You do boards and so forth. Then I went on another year of hormone health. Then I went on and did a year of gut-brain connection health. Then I went to Nutritious Life, and then I got certified as a thermalist instructor with a doctor in Denmark. And then I got certified as a transcendental meditation specialist and a breathwork specialist. And it was just habit stacking.
Certifications.
Yes. Building again, like, yes, the holistic tool belt, if you will, like what my father was doing, because that was the way I was going to rebuild myself, because I was no good for my loved ones. I was as beat down and a hot mess. And so with that, I was able to help everybody. And I never would have come to this place and who I am now had I not gone through that hardship of that burnout. And, having that education and then having the experience with travel and really merging both of those has led me to this place of this deep rooted passion of how can I help individuals, and, where that has really led me now. And I feel like what we have built, and I know we'll probably get into Well Inspired Travels and kind of how that all came together as a couple, because that's an interesting aspect of
Very interesting.
building a business.
Well, you talked about athlete and business person, and they deal with the exact same stuff, from the stressor to stressful life, and spouse at home not understanding what they're dealing with, and kids, time, all that stuff that an athlete deals with and a CEO of a company deals with. The parallels are so much the same. It's just, so we have a unique understanding of putting yourself in their shoes and really understanding what they're dealing with on a day-to-day basis, and what they may or may not need from the standpoint of getting quality family time, or you're being pulled in so many different directions that it can be hard at times to really prioritize and understand what you need to be doing.
And also just one thought, because I think it's actually really smart what you did, because all the things that you need to understand to navigate this high performance life, it's going to affect basically every part of your life, your body, your health, your wellness, mental, physical. And I think that people look at one solution or one answer. Like you mentioned, you got all these certificates and you went through all these programs. So you understand all the different things that can impact you. But people just look at one thing, or they just teach one thing, or they subscribe to one thought leader or one point of view or one opinion, and they assume that's the only way it's going to be. And then they just zero in, blinders on to this one. I'll give you a very basic example. Somebody wants to go keto or whatever, and there's keto is the answer, and keto is going to solve all my problems. And there's so many other components to health, wellness, clarity, layers. And this is what I hate about social media. This is what I hate about YouTube and thought leaders, because people are almost like they have this it's my way or the highway. No one else is right. And that is wrong. That's always wrong. So I like that you learn all these different modalities, and then you can see, now I understand how the whole body works together, because that's how you thrive, I think.
Absolutely. And it's truly listening to our clients and meeting them where they're at in their journey. As Chris talked about, mentorship, that's a huge component to Well Inspired Travels. It's a huge component to me working as a wellness consultant with individuals, because it is such a noisy space and I don't have all the answers. And actually, I'm going to say, let's peel this way back. Let's get back to basics. Let's simplify the situation. And in terms of travel, when individuals come to us, I always say it's our mission to have you go out into the world, travel the world, seek things that are going to teach you to be a better individual when you come back into your everyday life. So often we get people that are like, oh God, I deal with, my wife or my girlfriend or my, whatever it is or I hate my job and all these complaints, and they just want to run away from it. And our job is to say, you know what, actually learn something that the world can teach you to come back into your everyday life to be more optimal, more super well, if you will. And that has always been my mission, because it goes back to my upbringing and seeing what my father was seeking in his own journey. It gave him his life back. And the world is so beautiful and there's so much opportunity out there. And really that's what we do. And what we're passionate about is curating these trips for individuals when we listen to what they're dealing with on, a wellness front or just a mental front, emotional front, how to broaden your horizons. And so that's kind of like just a lot of it.
Yeah, be able to implement one thing into their everyday life and come back with another piece for your tool belt, if you will. And
Exactly. So, okay, so then how did you, so you're retired now, and then you're trying to figure out what to do next.
not retired from life.
Not even close.
Not even close. So, what's sort of the business? So you started the business first, and then Chris joined, or how did this work?
You want to tell how I hired you?
Yeah, here we go.
So good.
Employee number one
so
right here.
Employee number one?
Yeah, I own shares. What?
Yes.
Yeah, I was playing. I was working for the Florida Panthers. Yeah. So while I was playing, and a dream of mine was, I always thought I wanted to be a GM, president of the team, and do something in hockey, and thought it would, that was something that was very interesting to me. And when I started to go down that path, it was not what I thought it was going to be, or had illusions of grandeur. I don't know, but it just, for me, it didn't do it for me. And at the same time, she was building this business, and I was helping her on the business front and kind of some of the business plan and things of that nature. And I went to an event with her, and sports and hospitality are polar opposites. One, everybody's miserable and just pressure, stress, got to win. And hospitality, everybody's happy. Yeah. And everybody wants to help everybody out. And, so being in that environment, coming from this environment, was a breath of fresh air, and something where you're like, man, this is pretty cool. Everybody's helping everybody. And it just was very collegial. And I was not used to that. And so just, wanting to help her with her business and be a part of it in that regard. And then she invited me to be a part of Well Inspired Travels, and knowing what I was getting into certainly helped. Had I not had that experience, I don't know what I would have thought it was. So that was interesting. And we went on a little trip.
Blackberry Mountain.
We went to Blackberry Mountain it had just opened. We wanted to go check it out. We were big fans of Blackberry Farm, and had been there to check it out, and she had a nice little contract written up to, why don't you explain what you put in it?
There were quite a few
Lawyer Lauren.
stipulations.
L squared, Lawyer Lauren.
I mean, of course, I valued his business mind, and he was really helping me along the way. And I said, okay, well, if we do this, because we were talking more serious about it, I said, I'm going to draw up a contract, because number one, it cannot affect our marriage. And number two, it can affect our family and a few other ones that were not nearly as important. But if those two were ever going to be an issue, we had to figure out a way to bail out, whether we're going to sell the business or what have you. And because I took those things most serious, and Well Inspired Travels was never going to break us. Like I said, we've been through so much. So I think we slept on, or you said, let me sleep on it, as you always do.
So you wrote up a contract.
Yes.
Okay, I have a funny story about that.
Like everything in life, I learned a valuable lesson: always sleep on it, no matter what. There are a few things in life I didn't sleep on, and did not make the right decision. But
What? Edmonton was, yeah.
So, realized, listen, sounds very appealing and very exciting, but why don't you let me sleep on it, and we can talk about it in the morning? And so,
and I delivered the contract.
She delivered the contract next morning, because we talked about it. Yeah. I said, I want to sleep on it. And she said, great, I'll work on this. And
I did. I was on my computer for hours.
Delivered it.
Yes.
And we walked through the dynamic of what it was going to look like. And
What were you?
I did not have a lawyer look at it. So technically,
You were bamboozled.
What were you worried about going into business together?
I would say we're both very strong-headed individuals, passionate, driven. I am the creative, visionary dreamer. He is very logical, numbers.
Execution.
Yes. So actually we are a beautiful complement together, but butt heads in terms of, but I want this to happen and I have this vision, and he is very practical when it comes to numbers. So I would say, like that was a bit challenging, but we are this great balance together. And, like if it were to ever become an issue where you bring work home and it affects your family where you can't turn it off. And there were a lot of years because, that was back in 2017, really, when we started talking about this and then built it in 2018. And where we are now, I would say our toughest years were probably those first 3 years. And I was like, God, do I pull the gosh darn contract out again, and look at it as a refresher?
Are we meeting all these stipulations?
Remember this? And then I look at when we bumped into COVID and a travel agency that was still trying to get off the ground. And people didn't take wellness as serious as they do now. So that was very forward thinking in terms of the travel space. And so when we hit COVID, that was very challenging for us. And Chris was mindful on numbers and budget and so forth. And I really used that as a time of saying, hey, there are a lot of women, females that are getting laid off in St. Louis. And I wanted to use that time as actually building up power and bringing individuals on for business development and the back office, the computer systems and so forth. Having a heart for women, like seeing what my mom went through when my dad was sick and the unknown of how to bring in money and so forth. And I had such a heart for that, being a female entrepreneur. And so we went out and we hired some of the best females in the travel space. And they are so loyal to this day. Dear friends, we, always stay in touch, and they are a part of everything and woven through Well Inspired Travels to this day. And I look at that as almost like Mario Bros at that time, COVID was really hard. We were squished down. I'm going back to the 80s here, when he was the little guy and then he ate the mushrooms or whatever he did and he grew powerful. That's how we came out of COVID. And Chris trusted my vision, and he was always, watching the numbers and so forth. But we came out that much stronger, swinging like Donkey Kong. Yeah. I'm going back to all the video games.
Listen, this is my childhood. I love it.
But we did and hit the ground running, because at that time, everybody wanted to know about wellness. Yeah. And they were seeking answers and curious about how can I travel? How can I find things to be more optimal, more super well, if you will. And so at that time, we really dominated that space. And now, our business is thriving. We have an incredible partnership. We can take on so many different clients, and we've got an awesome back office that supports us. We always do all the onboarding, and we love to call ourselves the travel matchmakers, because we take it very serious, and we love to be involved in good friends and mentors with our clients, because as Chris said, we've experienced most of what they're going through. These are professional athletes, other high net worth individuals. And we share our raw, authentic journey with them of we've been there. And I don't know, if you want to share a little bit, because I know a lot of times you're talking to clients and.
Yeah, I think just talking to them about, we've seen a lot of what they're dealing with and have gone through a lot of what they're dealing with and have that unique understanding of how to navigate some of these situations. They're not always easy, just the pressures of life in general. It can get to you. And, we talked about the stats of athletes, and 70%, in 3 years are either broke, divorced, or homeless. It can be pretty daunting. And, high net worth families and CEOs and business people they're in the same boat too, as funny as it sounds.
So Well Inspired Travel, it's not necessarily about escaping your life. It's about kind of getting re-inspired and refilling your toolkit with the knowledge to kind of live your best life. Right. Correct?
Yes. Yeah. I love it. Look at you.
Yeah, she's very good at this.
You are.
I've always been so nervous about going into business 100% with a spouse. So you mentioned the contract. So when we first started dating, I was very business minded, and she runs My Therapist Says, and her and her sisters and one of their childhood best friends, they built it together, and it's very successful. So it's not like they aren't business minded, but I'd say that I'm business first, creative second. She's more, and her sisters are more creative first, business second. And I saw so many opportunities, and I wanted to help out, and it's like all like, savior complex, whatever. I'm
like
gonna,
a month
yeah. And I actually wrote, because I was so frustrated she wasn't listening to my advice. I wrote an NDA that I signed, and I'm like, just legally, if we break up, I won't talk shit about your business.
He comes to me, he's like, babe, I understand that it's hard for you to, maybe you don't trust me. I'm an outsider, like you and your like sisters and your friend, like you're all like very like private. You don't talk about work, but I have so many ideas because this is like the space I'm in anyway. This is what I'm passionate about. And if it helps, if it makes you feel better to trust me with this work stuff, I'm going to sign NDA. Here it is. I wrote it. I signed it. Keep it.
Yeah.
A month into our dating.
Actually, when we moved.
Yeah. I literally just found it. I know. I told him, I was like, I'm going to frame this. It's so funny. That's what I literally said. I was like, I need to frame this because it's so funny. I look at him and I'm like, I didn't ask for this. He's like, no, I know, but like, I wanted you to have it. And I'm like, I don't care about this. That's not why I'm not listening to him.
But it was not why I'm not telling you.
It's like scary to go all in, because you think about, if this doesn't work, it's tough for a couple of reasons. It's tough because as a man, at least, your identity is really tied up in your work. Like mine was always tied up in my work, and it's something I still would struggle with if I just didn't have any of my own stuff. And keep in mind, I still help her with a lot of the stuff from My Therapist Says, but I still do my own thing. Yeah. And that to me it means a lot to me. But I think that I would be stressed about if I quit if I quit my podcast, not running a business, not doing anything, and I'm just working for My Therapist Says.
Asked him. Yeah. Literally, my family was like, hey, do you want to come on board and be like a co-CEO and like help run things? Because he knows operations well and sales well and all these things that we're kind of like less experienced at, because I'm just a girl. So we're so busy with the creative parts and like, the business development and everything. And we're just so full of ideas. And we needed someone to kind of just like do the stuff we don't want to do. Yeah. And he's like, no, I don't want to work with or for your family. I'm not going to do this. No. First of all, it's like, he's like, I don't want to put all eggs into one basket. And I feel like it is a little bit of a male ego where he's like, I don't want to work for my wife's business. So, probably is. But, so now all I get is like, I don't know, maybe like 30% of your time to help me out with stuff I don't want to do. Time. Yeah. I mean, I insist. I'm like, hey, I need you to help me reflect this email. He's like, oh, I'm doing this. I'm like, I don't care. We're doing this right now.
Oh my God.
Oh, we're doing
But
this.
I love it because it sounds like you guys found a beautiful balance in this dance that works. Because I do think, as you were talking about, the male ego, it's a big thing. So you have this superstar NHL player, and kind of getting back to, when I started Well Inspired Travels, he was essentially in the kitchen. I mean, truly in the kitchen with our kids. And you want to talk about a man that shifted from being the best on the ice and didn't take that hit to the ego and was like, this is your turn, Lauren. This is your opportunity to shine. And like, that is impressive for an individual and a man to do that. And the funny part too is our kids, what did the kids say about it?
Dad, you work for Mom?
I was like, yes, I did. But it's about finding this beautiful dance with your spouse and your companion on how do we complement each other? How do we stay in our own lane, but yet also support each other, respect each other, allow each other to level up, lift each other up, and support each other when we're down at our worst, but also, give them the opportunity for growth when it's your turn. And that's hard because yes, a lot of individuals and couples, somebody gets jealous or competitive. And I think Chris and myself, it hasn't been perfect, but we've done this incredible dance through our journey in life so far together of 25 years of really loving each other and meeting each other where we're at. And I'm grateful for that with you.
Thank you. I am too.
I actually
want to dance?
You want to dance?
I love to dance. We should go dancing.
Yes, I would love to dance. Oh my God, let's do it. Monday night, where do we dance in Miami?
Anywhere. I was about to say anywhere.
It's the right city for it.
Yeah. That's the last thing we need to look for.
My question was, so you're doing this incredible dance as a couple, as a family, and then you had kids, I assume, pretty young. Yeah. And how, like right now, it's very trendy to be like, oh, for the success of the marriage, the couple should put each other first and then focus on the kids afterwards. Like you have to not overlook each other and your relationship and intimacy and love by focusing everything on the kids. Like that's how a lot of, I guess, our parents ended up divorced, and how a lot of like love kind of disappears eventually, and like the everyday life takes over. What kind of was your philosophy in that sense, like raising your family and not losing this spark, because there is a spark, we can all see it. And I'd love to know, how are you still like this, like, hot fun and like excited by each other?
I would say, you have to be mindful of that for sure, in terms of stepping away and having that intimacy and that time as a couple, because you can get caught up in the day-to-day life of not nurturing your relationship with your spouse. And Chris and myself have always done a great job at being present parents. He came from two awesome parents. I did the same. And I think they taught us a lot about the value of family and raising a family. And I would say we always were mindful of our social interaction was going on trips together. It wasn't about going and, like drinking our face off at the country club, or, like him going off, like with a bunch of dudes. When we were ever away from our kids, it was actually about the two of us nurturing our relationship, traveling the world together. And we have lots of friends, but family has always come first. And I think if you are present with your kids and making that the number one value, then it allows you the space when you are together to not be stressed out, because the worst thing in the world is then all hell breaks loose at home because you haven't been mindful parents. And now seeing where our kids are, Jack, 22, thriving and successful and just on the cusp of like launching into the finance world. And I mean, like, I think you could probably share a little bit about where our kids stand with like seeing us as parents and what we provided for them. I don't know if you want.
Yeah, I think when we first got married, to go back and then I'll go forward, I was 26, she was 23. And
I think that's right. Yeah. Jack, how old were we?
No, we were 28 and 25. Yeah, that's it. We were 28, 25, 27, 25, whatever. I'm 3 years older. I know I look like I'm 40, but I'm not. Trust me. But I think initially she was, I wanted to have kids right away. And she was like, I don't know, none of my friends are even married yet. Yeah. One of those. And now she doesn't look like she's got a 22-year-old and a 20-year-old and a 16-year-old. And we're just coming into this second phase of our life. We're going to be empty nesters in a few years. And, we're in a great place. But to see us dig into our kids and, always, be present and be invested in them and their success and teaching them life, what we know. You see them now kind of start to, you look at, you always hear, the kids emulate you. The kids are listening all the time. They know what's going on, even when you don't think they are. And to kind of see where they're at now and to kind of see how they're thriving at school. And listen, it's up and down. As we talked about earlier, it's not Instagram filtered perfection here. There's ups and downs, just like we do every single day. But they're doing really well, and they are very appreciative of the fact that we were invested in them and helping them succeed, but allowing them to fail and figure things out on their own. But keep the guardrails somewhere where if they clipped it too far out, we would be there to have a little chat and tell them it was where they needed to fix themselves or what they could do to right the wrong or what have you. So. We're very proud of all three of them and kind of where they are in their lives and what's next for them, especially our oldest, as Lauren said, he's senior at SMU and looking at doing something big in the future.
And I would say, like the value that we provide for our clients and who we are as individuals on the platform that we're creating in this chapter too. We don't have it all figured out, but we're here to share like marriage and parenting and growing a business together. And I think there's a lot of value in that.
Leveling up together. Like, it's not easy. We don't have it all figured out. The more you have conversations, the more you learn. It's, as we talk about on these trips, you can implement one thing that you learned in your everyday life. It's the same thing with every interaction and every conversation you have. If you pick up one little tidbit you can add to your arsenal of your tool belt, you're going to be that much better.
And even on, that note, as we were talking about like imperfections and vulnerabilities and so forth, like our boys model everything their father does. And they, like Chris, I think recently has leveled up his own health and wellness. And I'll let him share a little bit about that, but kind of on a funny side, and that he can get to it, is our boys are so proud of their father. And there was a moment about a year ago where they were not so proud of him. And he, like had to come to Jesus with their father. And that was a hard thing. But now they're like this, the kids use this like terminology about correct. I'm sure you probably have heard this. It means like good.
I don't know all the new.
It means like he's doing good. He's making good choices in his life. And they're like, Dad is so correct. He is so good. Like, he's amazing. And the way that they look at him and the approval and the admiration is 100 times bigger than when he was MVP of the league.
That's so interesting what people look up to.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know if you want to share a little bit about like kind of
what happened.
Yeah, what makes you
so I was just, I would say I had I had an unhealthy relationship with alcohol. I don't know if I had a problem, however you want to describe it. I liked the taste of it. Some people, you can tell they don't, where they're like, oh, but they still do it. And I'm like, no, I just enjoyed it. And it was just something, something I always did.
What happened a year ago?
This situation with my kids happened a year ago, but, just in general over the years. I wasn't a big drinker, I wasn't a big drinker playing. Summer times was kind of when I would party and drink and let some steam off, whatever. And then, just you retire and you're, just golfing and you're just doing things, just random things, right? And COVID wasn't good. You start drinking earlier. What are you going to do? And it really, that's as sad as it sounds. I think that's probably one of the things that happened to me over COVID. I just started drinking a lot more every single day. And since my concussion, when I would drink, I could feel it immediately in my head. Like the moment it touched my tongue, boom, I could just feel it in my head. And you just kind of slough it off, whatever, and it's not a big deal. Like everything else, mind over matter, and you're just like, it's not that big a deal.
You're not stressed about it.
You're not stressed about it. You're not worried about it. And, as time goes on, you're drinking more and more. You're doing all these things. You don't really see it. Like anything, when you're in shape or you're out of shape, the delta between the two, you don't realize how much out of shape you are or how in shape you are. Because you see yourself every single day.
It's like habit stacking, but in reverse.
Exactly.
It's like,
you open up a can of whoop ass now. So as I'm going through it, I'm like, you start drinking more and more, and then you start drinking more and more each time you drink, and you don't really realize or recognize it. And ultimately, my kids are like, okay, we don't like you being this hammered all the time. We don't like being around you. We don't like how you're acting.
Being the adult.
You're supposed to be the adult in the room. You're not a college frat guy, et cetera. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess if this is where this is at, I need to do something about it. And just made the decision. All right, I'm going to do 75 hard, which is big training thing, and stop drinking and just all right. Well, then I'll just stop drinking. If it's that big, if you guys think it's that big a deal,
so
from what you can see,
they said that. So like that's a year ago when they said that. Yeah. They said that to you.
Yeah. And so I just said, all right. Well, then I don't have to, and just said, okay, then fine, I'll stop drinking.
And I don't think. Well, actually, I mean, I feel. Well, I do feel.
And I was always in good shape. Yeah. Like, the first
Not
couple.
How you look
hold on.
now.
Hold on. The first. Hold on. The first couple years of my career, I was not like a diehard workout guy. I was somebody who relied on his talent. And, I had pretty good cardio just naturally. but I didn't train properly. I didn't put the effort forth and, dive in and try to perfect and be the best possible player I could be. Once I did that, then I took my game to the next level and took off. My career took off. And the same as a year ago, I was not in great. I would pick and choose when I'd work out. I'd pick and choose how I felt. I'd pick and choose. A lot of excuses, like everything, victimhood mentality of, my back's sore, my knee's sore, my body's sore, 16 surgeries, all these other maladies, whatever. And you make excuses as opposed to, okay, man up and, okay, you said you're going to do it. Yeah.
And I would say, I think when that happened with the boys, and it truly, I remember it clear as day. It was actually October, it was almost exactly a year ago. And they sat their father down, and it was truly a come to Jesus of, you need to clean yourself up. And he could have said, screw you guys, I'm fine. And look at you guys, you're in college, you guys drink your face off. But silently, Chris stepped away from that. And I watched him make subtle changes. I have always been very mindful of my wellness and being optimal. Whether you want to say, I put this protective body armor on because I know what I was given in terms of genes. My father's colon cancer runs through me. My mom, breast cancer. So I have all these things. And so that's always been kind of like very important to me. But I was never going to push that upon Chris. It had to be on his own terms because that's who he is. And if I were to ever say, hey, I want you to start being more mindful of not drinking so much, eating better, stress management, all these things, he would have shut down. It would have been really tough on our marriage.
I would have needed to write a contract up.
Yes. So I was proud of him because he just put the wheels in motion, and it was starting with 75 Hard, and our boys both have gone through 75 Hard as well. And it has been life-changing for him. And I would say, and maybe you can speak to this, because I am so diligent about the habit stacking, all the things I do in my life to stay optimal and super well. He's always watched that. And not that he wasn't, but I would say you weren't as on top of like doing the consistent things in an everyday life. And I always live by like kind of an 80-20 rule of thumb. It was really great to see that you were starting to do these things on your own. And like, we just kind of, again, did this beautiful dance together in a different level of life of let's get super well together. I call him my Mr. Super Well.
Some stuff I like, some stuff I'm like, no, I don't like that. I don't want to do that.
You had to pivot from doing it as a career to doing it for you.
But I always was kind of in shape. I wasn't in great shape, but like playing shape, and you make it
like this.
Look at that.
I'm just hearing like.
Why, Gina? Why does she always interrupt me when I'm trying to?
No, I'm just saying you look as good as you did when you won the Stanley Cup.
I know, but I was about to say I wasn't in great shape, but I'm not exactly there, but I'm getting closer to them.
You look amazing.
Thank you.
Sexy beast.
I'm almost there.
See, she's only interrupting to hit on you.
Yeah. I mean, that's it.
Okay.
Mr. Super Well.
I'm hearing a lot of like what he says to me all the time when I'm like trying to hammer down certain wellness habits.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, I look good. I feel good. Like, I'll go to the gym. I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's not all there is to it. But they just seem to be from the same kind of school of thought. It's like, oh, we work out, we did this, like, we play hockey, he goes to the gym, he's like, I'm good. Yeah. Like, this is all I need. I'm like, I feel like there's more to it.
Well, there probably is. It's just being stubborn. Maybe
he has to wait for his kids to have a come to Jesus moment.
That would be super tough for me though. That would be super tough. If my kids like.
It was not easy to sit there and have your kid.
Parent you.
Well, and look at you, and you could see they were not happy, but it was a tough conversation to have.
Well, and I think also really sharing the truth, like the whole true story was we were struggling as a marriage too. Like, and I was like, this is not going to take us down after everything we've been through. I was fighting my own battle, like as a wife, but then when you have your kids, so he knew I was disappointed, and I was like, you need to clean your stuff up. Like, this is really not the best version of yourself. And I'm disappointed in you as a husband. And then when your kids, you know, a 21-year-old and a 19-year-old and your daughter kind of are like, hey, Dad, Chris could have made a lot of different decisions. He made the right decision. And I'm so proud of him, because not only did he execute, but man, like, he has taken it to a whole new level. Yeah. And like I said, our kids look at him, I mean, with such admiration, bigger than when he won a Stanley Cup or a gold medal or anything like that. And that's pretty unique for an individual that is going to be 50 years old.
Well, I think
looking.
It also gives you clarity.
Or almost 40.
Yeah, almost 40.
Almost
Yeah,
40.
I'm close.
But you know what's actually, I've thought about this a lot. People that are high performing at sports or at business, they are one bad habit away from going down this really bad road, because because you get addicted to the result.
Yes.
And that's the only way you could ever play pro anything or ever make X amount of dollars. You have to be like a little bit unhinged to be able to go that far in the thing. Yeah. So if you pivot that towards something good, life-changing, beautiful. You pivot that towards something bad, then all of a sudden it's like that is so encompassing, because you're all or nothing. People that are successful in anything are all or nothing, more often than not.
True.
Well, I would completely agree with that.
Yeah.
And to be at that level, you have to be.
And for your kids to be so proud of you now, like you say, even more so than when he like won the Stanley Cup and all these things, it just shows what is really truly important to them, what they value. Like, they don't care that their father, like, it's cool, but they want their father to be like his most healthy, most, you know, clear-headed.
Yeah.
So that's actually incredible and a testament to how mature your kids are.
And I always say that whole concept of I do, you do, we do, right. You know, like they model everything we do. And all three of our kids are very focused on health and wellness. They all lift heavy. They're like, the boys are gym bros, which they hate that term. Lila, who started training herself when she was 15, she writes her own programs. I mean, they all get to the gym and they model everything we do. And I mean, they eat really well. Like, now I'm hiding my Brussels sprouts and roasted mixed vegetables from my boys because they eat it all so fast. And I'm like, I can't cook fast enough. But yeah, when they were kids, it was all Kraft mac and cheese and all these things. And, you know, so it's really amazing to see as a family how you evolve through challenges in life and you grow together, because they're seeing that mom and dad aren't perfect. I mean, we do the best we can to keep peace in the household.
The growth that happens from the adversity.
Absolutely.
That's when you grow. It's not the easy tap-ins and the easy days. It's the hard days. That's when you find true growth.
And I think, you know, we've sat down and had so many conversations with our kids on values of, you know, girlfriends, boyfriends, and, you know, who to look for. And I think they're curious as to, this is a crazy world, and these kids and social media and what they're up against, and even choices of friends. Mm-hmm. And I think, you know, for the two of us, you know, we're all about really keeping your circle tight and being with individuals that lift you up, that are not.
I think that's right. I think people that lift you up, not.
You want to be around people that make you feel good, but
give you energy. Give you energy. Don't take it away. Yeah.
They help you level up, but they're challenging you. They call you out on your shit, but they, you know, you're doing good. Hey man, you're doing great.
Those people are hard to find because everyone's so worried about offending
and
or themselves.
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. They don't want to hold anybody accountable because God forbid you piss somebody off because you're holding them accountable. Well, sorry.
And I feel like they all do have this beautiful light about them. And, you know, if you allow individuals to grab onto that light and kind of dim that, you know, you're not able to share the gifts that you want to share with individuals. And I just, I think, you know, like, it's hard to raise kids in this day and age and just what they're all up against. But
I have to take a second and thank the sponsor of today's podcast, LinkedIn. Now, when you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. And that's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs isn't just a job board. It helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but might be open to the perfect role. And did you know that in a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites? So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. What really amazed me was how quickly I found qualified candidates on LinkedIn. 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. It's like hiring professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. As small business owners, we're always juggling multiple responsibilities. LinkedIn understands this and constantly finds ways to make the hiring process easier. They've even launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process even quicker. And it's really no wonder why 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. I can't recommend it enough for finding top-notch professionals who could take your business to the next level. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/excellence. That's linkedin.com/excellence to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply.
So I get, yeah, just you've gone through like so many ups and downs as a couple, as business partners. If you're going to look back, I guess I think it's very interesting to understand out of all the different things that have sort of happened in medical, career, business, kids, what would be the thing that you find the hardest to go through as a couple?
Well, the hardest thing as a couple was probably Edmonton. You know,
He went there.
and last year would be probably a close second.
Yeah.
You know,
That almost brought us down
the tail end of it, but
That was probably the hardest.
you know, the whole Edmonton shit show was a lot of different things that happened. Again, as I look back, and we just talked about it, when I don't sleep on something or I've been drinking, what happens? That night we were at a friend's 30th birthday. I got the call that I just got traded, and we went out, grabbed a couple of books on Edmonton. She didn't know anything about it. You know, whatever. Then she went to bed. Then I sat up having a couple of beers. My agent called me, you know, as I'm thinking about it, and then I get on the line with Edmonton, and I'm like, oh, okay, they want to talk to you. I'm like, okay. And all of a sudden, we're negotiating a contract right there. And I'm like, what? And so, you know, it just, as you look back, when you have clarity and you're able to look at kind of what you've done, you look back and go, okay, well, there's one mistake. What were you doing? Oh, you were drinking. Oh, there's another mistake. You know, got a DUI when I
Did you negotiate the contract when you were drinking?
Well, really did not sleep on it, huh?
My agent negotiated it, and I was.
You're doing this while
I was drunk.
She's asleep, he's drunk.
I was already, you know, had already been drinking.
Yeah. No. I didn't realize when you said you didn't sleep on it, it was like the same night.
No, it was the same night. I didn't sleep on it. I got the trade notice at like 9 o'clock. I didn't sign it. I just agreed to it verbally. Could I have gotten out of it? Maybe, but I agreed verbally to it.
Yeah.
With all parties on the line.
Oh, wow, we're going to move to Edmonton for the year. Thinking in the morning I'll wake up and...
So as I look at it, I'm like, okay, there was one where I was drinking. A DUI I was drinking. Yeah. The other time I got thrown in jail when I was with Hartford in Buffalo, I was drinking. You know, and you just look at all the situations. You're like, okay, there's that. You're just looking at all the situations. You're like, okay. I mean, clearly something stands out. You know, and it takes, you know, it just all comes full circle, and it becomes clearer when you stop doing something. You're like, okay, and you start leveling up, and you're working on things that matter, whether it's 2.0, 3.0, whatever you want to call certain things.
Thread between all the dumb shit that's happened and the bad shit that's happened.
The bad shit that happens to you, there's a common thread, and there's a reason, or there is a specific reason things happen. And then on the leveling up front, you're just thinking so clearly, and you're able to see exactly what you want to do and the different things that you can help people with your experiences. And
you're like, why am I wasting my one chance on earth doing all this dumb shit when like the opportunity I have is once in a lifetime? People will kill for this. Yeah, I get it.
And based on the experiences that I have and what I know and what I can help people with, you know, can you use that as a chance to pay it forward and help people level up and take their lives to the next level, whether it's professionally or personally. And, I wanted to kind of see where that could take me.
I think it's a blessing. I want to ask like your answer to the same question, but I think it's actually such a blessing that you're both here, you're both together, and regardless of all the ups and downs, you figure out a way to get through it. Because I actually think that if you give a young kid virtually at this stage in their life seems to be unlimited money, and you're like, go and figure shit out. And not only that, it's not just money. It's not like it's a trust fund kid. You're also famous. Yeah. So it's like you get both at the same time. And you're like, go figure out life. I'm sure that most people would fuck that up. Because, I mean, I'm thinking about how I was at whatever, 18, 19, 20. Like I got in trouble too. Not that bad, but I got in trouble too. And I didn't have unlimited money. So I can only imagine that when you think, you're invincible to the world.
Well, and you're playing a sport that's physical, so you are invincible.
100%.
You feel that way. Now you have all this money. You're not taught finance in high school,
which is a huge issue. Actually, it's a huge issue that you're not taught how to deal with this.
Which is it's stupid, but that's another podcast.
That's another podcast. Yeah, let's redo. We can't fix everybody's health, wellness, and then redo the education system all in one podcast.
What's your answer?
You know what? I'm actually going to kind of pivot, and I'm not going to focus on a particular moment. What I'm going to say is, let's talk about chapter 2 and how, the hardest moments, which is what Chris, I think, just talked about. I would say that was probably the hardest moment. That was just about rock bottom for him, for us, for our family. And it was devastating to me as a wife of thinking, is this really everything we've fought for, that we thought we're never going to let anything take us down, and this is what's going to take us down? I am not standing for this. No, please, Chris, bring us back. I couldn't ask him to do it. He had to do it on his own, and he did it. And now I look at chapter 2, that is unbelievable, where we're at in this place. And it had to go from that to this. And I love that extreme, because I think now Chris has such clarity of his mind, and he is able to really support what I'm wanting to do in my life. He's seeing, the growth and the opportunity on all fronts of being optimal from the mind, body, and spirit, because it all plays into each other. And I'm just excited to see him on the cusp of 50 looking better than he has ever looked at this stage in life. I mean, truly, I look at photos. We've got him near where we feed our dogs every morning, and we scoop the food out every morning. And there's this picture of him and the boys, and he's flexing right before he won the Stanley Cup. And I'm like, oh my God, because I see him every morning as he's showering and so forth. I'm like, you look as good as you do now. And that is something to be said for a man who has had 16 surgeries and gone through all he has gone through. And I think it took, getting back to your question, of getting to the hardest place to be where he's at and where we are now. And now seeing this rocket ship that we're both at this place in life. And, I always say, in terms of my mantra in life, my own personal mantra has always been, I am the well, striving to be super well. Why the heck not? And I'm here to be a guide for others to do the same. Because we're all at this place of, I don't want to just be well. I want to be super well. I want to be as optimal as I humanly can. And every day I get out of bed, he gets out of bed, you get out of bed. We make choices. And how you are productive in your life and implement those choices are going to feed into the next day and the next day and the next day. We're not perfect. I always say 80-20, but when I am 80% on, I am the best version of myself. And I love to be just a guide and an inspiration to others to do the same. And I feed off of that from individuals too, because we're just at this place in life where there's so much confusion. There's so much noise out there. And I was given, these genes as I was talking to you about, with my father's colon cancer, my mom and breast cancer and so forth. And does that mean that I'm going to say every morning, well, geez, I'm just destined to have these terrible genes and I'm going to get cancer or I'm going to get diabetes like my dad, or I'm going to have a stroke? Or am I going to do everything in my power to defy those odds, make good choices, not eat processed food, try to sleep optimally, and try to fuel my body from a nutritional standpoint, lower my central nervous system, tap into that parasympathetic nervous system? And I feel like all of us live in this heightened state all the time of the sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight, a lion's chasing us. We're on all the time. And we were talking about, as females, like our systems and our hormones are so hypersensitive to this world that is in front of us now. It's not changing. It's where we're living. It's going to get worse. How do we dial it back? How do we really calm everything and get back to the basics of healing our bodies? And that's where I have these 8 pillars, and I call it the super well living method. One is well aging, optimal sleep, nourishing nutrition, getting back to nature. None of them cost money. None of them are that hard.
They're pretty simple.
Yeah.
But yet
it is something that fuels in this beautiful flow. And 8 is a very symbolic number for me because it's a continuous infinity symbol of no broken chains, balance, harmony. And I always say biorhythm for females is so important because dudes, you guys live in this biohacking, bros that are like, I'm going to cold plunge really hard and I'm going to stay in there for 10, 12 minutes and all this. And as we were talking, Gina, about the HPA axis, the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal system, and this delicate balance for females is how we stay in balance and that rhythm. Because if something is off from our mind, body, and spirit and this beautiful rhythm and dance that's trying to play, and there's a cacophony and a disruption, whether it's your gut, as we were talking about, the gut health is vitally important. That's our second brain. It is going to disrupt everything. And I just try to share with individuals the most basic concepts in phases because I need to meet everybody where they're at in their journey. I don't want to intimidate them. I don't want to scare them off, but it's truly getting out first thing in the morning, setting your eyes on the sun, no technology, getting your feet in the ground, in the soil, having lemon water with greens and all these basic things that whether you want to call it habit stack and laugh it off.
Habit stacking.
But I also have a beauty element. I put on a red light therapy mask and I do a lot of things throughout my day, where I can have that on. Biomats. I mean, yeah, you have red light therapy and saunas and all these things that cost money, but there's a lot of ways that I teach and guide individuals that don't cost any money. And it's truly just calming our systems. And, I just love to share it. It's a deep rooted place of passion for me because it goes back to my father's journey and now my own journey of feeling my own sense of burnout and building this holistic tool belt. And at any point in time, I truly tell individuals, I'm like, yeah, your doctor can prescribe you this pill. You got to take a pill. Then you have to let it react in 20, 15, whatever, however long it takes. Or you can learn simple breathwork patterns. You can learn meditation, a mantra. And that is the fastest way to tap into your parasympathetic nervous system, your rest and digest, which you were asking about my CGM here. So I look at all my wearables. I've got 3 right now. I've got more coming. And
it's never ending.
Chris is
more
habit stacking never ends.
But so there are all these wearables, and I always say the proof is in the pudding. And so I was part of the beta testing for the CGM, which is through Levels Health app, and it's integrated through a CGM, which measures your glucose. And they have more coming out in the future that are going to monitor all different things in the body. And it gives you your own bio-individual numbers and data to how my body is reacting. And as we were talking about how I hacked my system with the hormones and I did the whole fertility, ovulation monitors for 3 months, because I always want my own data. That's how I find comfort. I don't obsess over it, but I know that I see what's spiking my system, whether it's my heart rate, whether it's my glucose, that's telling me something. I'm not going to react the same way you're going to react. I may be allergic to barley. I may have heightened senses with something that you don't. How I react to the cold tub, how I react to stress, how I react to too much high intensity workouts, caffeine versus matcha. So all these things that I have put into place over since 2011, essentially my burnout, I have gained so much insight. And I'm not sitting here saying, hey, Gina, okay, your body is going to react the exact same way my body is. But what I'm going to say is, here are tools. Here are ways that you should try out things and see how your body reacts, see how you feel. Trust the process. Let's go from phase 1 to phase 2 to phase 3. And I have these digital courses that I'm working on that I'm really excited to share because I think it allows individuals to not be intimidated and ask any question you want.
No,
I just keep going.
I 100%.
And this is just the icing on it. I mean,
this is just real life. No, so when you think about, so like Chris, even all the problems that you had and the health problems and whatnot, what did you start to include in your life that didn't work?
And by the way, all of the things that we do now, and some of them, the data is showing when I used to do them, it was wrong. Like cold plunging. I used to do the cold plunge after I worked out. Oh, it's for inflammation, it's for this, for that. Well, the new data suggests that you should do it before. So it's ever evolving. It's always changing and adapting to new studies, to new things that are going on. I drink greens in the morning. I drink, let's see here. What do I do first? I get up, I drink a glass of water. Then I do my greens. Then I do the infrared sauna. Then I do the cold plunge. Then depending upon what my lift looks like, I'll either eat or I'll do my lift, depending upon what the lift is. And then I'll start my day. And I'll, start writing or doing things and then look at emails and do that stuff. But I try to be technology free the first 30 to 45 minutes of the morning.
Do you find it makes like a huge, huge difference?
I do. But I'm also very much into habits, very much into habit stacking.
Look at you, Mr.
And I have been, I'm very routine oriented, very much into having routines and structure and discipline and so whether it's discipline to training and eating and doing all these things, it's having those in place so that I know exactly what I'm doing. And then it's, why am I doing it? And what is it providing me? And how is it fueling me or making me better?
Yeah. So you're probably,
I don't have 35 habit stacks, but I have some that I do every single day that allow me to start my day off better.
Yeah.
In a more aligned day, and that sets up my day for success every single day.
You feel like it's a noticeable difference when you go through the routine versus not?
Yeah. I have my days are clearer and more effective when I have structure to my day, and when it's loosey-goosey, I'm traveling early so I can't do certain things, and you're out of whack. You're out of balance because you're not within the structure that allows you, the discipline structure that allows you to be the most successful.
You keep talking about habit stacking. So talk to me about habit stacking. So, I mean,
clearly I could use some. So
I have a book I brought for you all too. Yeah. And yes, it's truly AM to PM. I don't follow it religiously. I'm not obsessed over it. I mean, we all have to give each other grace, but I add to it all the time. I subtract sometimes. I really base it on my wearables, and I look at things and I adjust. I track my hormones through, I have these ovulation kits that I've hacked my whole system with that. And that's a female thing of you pee on these sticks, kind of like, are you pregnant? You're not pregnant. But it's incredible the insights that I look at, and I'm kind of my own scientist and biohacker of my system.
Because you know what regular is and you know what not.
Yes, absolutely. And I like to say I'm kind of a guinea pig for all females in my area. And the great thing is that I'm 47, so I'm not too young where, like people, older women don't take me serious, and I'm not too old, like I'm right in this sweet spot. And I'm the first person to say I am entering into menopause with a soft bounce. And that is my goal and my mission. And it's a hot topic right now. I know this is making you too uncomfortable right now, but it's not
bothering me at all.
It truly is. And I think, like there's a way to approach it. And in terms of habit stacking, it plays into the hormones.
Maybe even like just explain for the audience, like what habit stacking is.
So truly it's being as efficient as you can with your time and productive, but mindful of the wellness component. You don't want to stress yourself. Everybody can be like, well, I habit stacked for time efficiency. But is that stressing your central nervous system out? Because that is defeating the whole purpose.
If you just feel like your whole day is ruined if you don't get these things in and you got to get them in. Yeah.
I don't set my alarm. My body naturally wakes up by circadian rhythm. I leave the drapes open. So I see the sun coming out. And the first thing I do not touch, technology is not in our space. I literally put on my robe, my glasses. I step out the door, eyes first on the sun. The reason I do that is because it's circadian rhythm. My eyes are telling my brain, this is the moment of waking up, gearing up, cortisol, go ahead, spike up. Let's get going. Let's gear up for the day. So then I go out there, I do a little breath work, kind of set my intention for the morning. Then I put my feet in the ground at the same time. You're walking around in the soil and the grass any time of the season. I mean, obviously 20% if it's a snow ice day, I might not be doing it, but for the most part, it really helps me. And I know it sounds so woohoo and weird, but like that connection, that energy, something just penetrates through the whole body. And that energy and touching nature and the dewy grass and all of that, I go right inside. I don't turn the lights on in the bathroom. I have my lemon, so I have this whole recipe.
Oh, it's quite the concoction.
It is, but I'm very time efficient with that. I have these lemon ice cubes that I freeze every Sunday, and fresh lemon juice, but I put 50% water in and have them frozen, these little ice cubes. So I put it in a glass bottle. So they're always sitting sitting next to my bathroom sink. I have my greens there. I have apple cider vinegar. I have all these things that I dump into it. First thing to hit my gut. After a night of like fasting, I usually try to maintain like a 12-hour fast. Like I shut down the kitchen pretty early. So that's the first thing. And getting back to gut health and a reset, a cleanse, kind of like waking that up as I take kind of probiotics. And I don't like over stress about supplements. I know that people, that's a whole noisy space too, right there. I take the basics, a fish oil, a couple basic things. And then I go in and I have matcha and I mix it with creatine while I have my red light therapy mask on, feed the dogs, talk to the dogs, still no technology. Sometimes I will do like a metabolic flexibility tool to check where my fat and carb burning is, depending if we were traveling. And if I see like, hey, I had too many carbs, and because a lot is you want to be metabolically flexible, burning fat, burning carbs at certain times of the day. Most of the time now I've really hacked my system and I know where I'm at, but it's a great check-in. But getting back to like red light therapy mask is on. I'm kind of known for it. It's very goofy, but I multitask, habit stack with it on. As I'm making kind of like morning matcha, feeding the dogs, all those things. And then from there, like I'll make breakfast. Usually Lila will come down. I'll really plug into her. Protein forward breakfast, fuel my body. I am not scared.
Rainbow?
Yes. Usually have like microgreens, eggs, chicken, steak, huge meal. Oh my gosh. Women are like, I always try to meet like the goal of, yes.
Right.
Yes. My goal is a gram of protein per body weight or more. And I would say the more I fuel my body with protein, the more I eat in terms of like healthy, good nutrition, the skinnier I get. And the more heavier I lift, the more my body shrinks. It's like saran wrap on the body. Those are my two tips and tricks for women that are like, oh my gosh, like I'm getting so heavy in my abdominal area. What is that? That's cortisol dumping into your body. That's cardio. That's HIIT training. All the wrong things. I did it. Remember my burnout story. And I felt it. I saw it. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have been training the wrong way, fueling my body the wrong way. So yeah, protein forward breakfast. Then from there, I'll go down and do contrast therapy. By that time, he's like, Mr. Superwell has turned on the sauna.
I'm already done.
Yeah.
Stuff by the time she's done.
And God forbid if I ever enter into that zone of like where he is and we have it. I mean, it's not glamorous. It's in our storage closet in the basement. I mean, like what do we have in there?
Well, we have our infrared sauna. We have our cold tub. Yeah. We have our luggage and all of our holiday.
I see you do all the social posts from the sauna.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Santa's there. I mean, the Easter Bunny's there.
We got some of our AV stuff and some of our HVAC stuff down there. We got all kinds of stuff down in that room.
No, I think that's half the point of it, though. It's like whatever works, just like get it done.
Yeah. It doesn't have to look pretty; it just needs to work.
Yeah, and it's truly just the efficiency of being right there, having no excuses. And so by the time he's done in the cold tub, so the sauna is cranked up. We've got a one that switches from traditional to infrared. Usually I'll do 30 minutes in there. It's about 140 degrees. Sometimes okay, there you go. Sometimes I'll do like light weights and I'll do a little arm routine in there. I'm not jumping. I'm not like doing any cardio, or I'll listen to a podcast, or I'll meditate, do breath work. Like it just depends on my mood. I, again, look at kind of like my wearables, see where I'm at, what I need to do. I'll always do the lymphatic brush. Like when I'm in there, get all the, like that going, the detox and so forth. I'll use like a ice roller on my face. I've got a couple different ones that I love. I mean, I've got a hat on my head to keep the hair from drying out. It's a whole process. And then hop in the cold tub. And as I was telling you all, got certified as a thermalist instructor. So I really know what my system needs. And that's like definitely a learning curve for females. Guys can go in there, no problem. But it's very interesting.
She's been hesitant to do the cold plunge thing.
Yeah. And it is and I caution females because I think so often females want to try to keep up with men, and getting back to that whole biorhythm, we're very delicate and you have to be careful, because I essentially broke my system, the HPA axis, and doing too much, going too hard. And by looking at what my glucose does and my heart rate and so forth, by the time I get into the cold tub and I practice breath work, like I usually do a 4-7-8, I can tap into that place in a minute. And it goes from 130, my heart rate, to literally a trance state of 55. It's insane in a minute. How fast? And getting back to where I said about a pill on a plane or anxiety situation of like, if your doctor is prescribing you something, how fast is that to control your breath work that way in a panic situation? Because essentially when you get in a cold tub, your body is going into fight or flight. It's going into that sympathetic nervous system. Holy shit, what are you doing to me? And if you know those tools and how to dominate your central nervous system, you can dominate life. And that is so powerful. And I love sharing that with individuals, because like, do you want to have to take a pill and you know, like let that dominate you? Or do you want to be able to say, I know how to breathe through this, or I know how to meditate through this? And to me, that is the best gift you could ever provide anybody with. So yeah, contrast therapy, and then strength training, and then lunch, and then, I mean, all things. Always an evening walk.
The takeaway is super important for people who are listening to understand. Again, it's habits that are stacked.
There's habit stacking in the morning and habit stacking at night for her.
Yes, but that's not where you start.
No, where you find what works for you. Yeah, exactly. And that's the trick, is you're stacking things that work for you, that set you up for success throughout the day. Yeah. It's not random stuff that...
trying the next new thing and jumping on the next trend.
Exactly. Yeah. Like you were saying, you know, there's always the next influencer and TikTok where try this trend. I mean, like now I think there's this whole trend on chai seeds, and all of a sudden, wow, like the one with we're soak it in water overnight, and I'm like, oh my God, 12 years ago I was soaking chai seeds in water, and now I've been using Zen basil seeds, but that's part of my habit stacking that I've been doing for 12 years.
But you're ahead of the curve.
I don't have it all figured out, but I think just through years of my education and, knowing a lot about gut health, and that if we're going to talk about chai seeds and Zen basil seeds, that's a whole tangent I could go down, but you were talking about your gut, and I would love to share my favorite recipe, but it truly, like a long time ago when people talked about chai seeds, and now they're figuring out a few other different seeds that really help benefit the gut health and the microbiome, is the reason you want to soak it is because it gets this beautiful gelatinous state. And if you think about when things are gelatinous and they go down your tract, your digestion, and they end up in your gut, what are they going to grab? They're going to grab all the good and the bad bacteria. We want to get rid of the bad bacteria. And so that is what kind of evacuates. I know it sounds gross, but it keeps you optimal. And then the good bacteria is like, hey, we can have a party in here. We've gotten rid of the bad, because that's, like how you're going to build up that great gut barrier. And I always say to clients, because I try to like create pictures for people, and that gut lining, like you got this like fish net like this. And for people that have leaky gut, it looks a lot like this. And then the point is we want to kind of create this barrier like this, where it's so locked in and nothing can escape in terms of nutritional value. And so by, doing that, it traps everything good in there. And then by doing like the chai seeds and certain recipes, it evacuates the bad stuff. So I could go on and on about it.
Well, you mentioned two things that were interesting, because I've actually heard Huberman talk about them, the sunlight and the touching grass, the grounding. Yeah. Yes. So there's a lot of science behind it.
I love actually walking on grass. I love touching grass. There's something very grounding, zen, and just relaxing about it.
Mother Nature at work.
Because I've actually seen you doing a whole bunch of on Instagram. You're going on treks through mountains and jumping in pools and stuff. That's all part of it.
Yeah.
That's all part of it.
Yes, it is. Wherever you are in the world, you need to be one with nature and touching your feet to the earth and connecting and just, I don't know how to explain it. I know it sounds woohoo and all this weird stuff.
Well, no, but that's why I'm talking about Huberman, because I think he actually does research and looks at the science of it.
Yes.
I think there's a lot of science behind it.
Yeah. And when you look at your wearables and what it does, it's incredible. And I feel like I have so many years of data, and it's just kind of the proof is in the pudding.
What would you say the biggest misconception about wellness or any of these routines, something that you think people believe is true but actually isn't?
That's a good question.
I've done this once or twice.
Misconception. I would say complicating things and always thinking they can reinvent the wheel of try this, try that. I firmly believe in the basics. And I always like to say, I approach this with two unique lenses. I approach it from years of being a pioneer as a luxury wellness travel advisor and seeing what the whole world has offered in terms of that. And then as a wellness consultant and my education, and kind of melding those two things together, I see trends all the time. And I know what works is getting back to my father's journey. And wow, that was in the early 80s. And I'm doing the same things that saved my father's life. And it hasn't changed. And I'm feeling more optimal than I have ever felt at 47 than I did at 20. And it's not a TikTok trend. It's truly what my father did. It was learning meditation, being present with oneself, that soulful connection, getting out in nature, sun on the eyes, walking with your loved one, connecting that way, seeing the sunset going down at night. And I mean, I'm a big believer in acupuncture, and I have this hack of a acupressure mat on Amazon. It's $20. And it's essentially like going to an acupuncturist.
Great to sleep on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell them about tell them your story of the acupuncture.
I like to fall asleep on it.
Oh,
Feel good?
Feels awful.
God.
Like
But it drives her nuts because I usually start snoring
This
because
is like
I'm
the bottom
out
of a golf
cold.
shoe.
She just did acupuncture for the.
I'm buying you one of these. You're
So
going to
this
love it.
mat essentially has like golf spikes.
A bunch. It's called the bed of nails.
So like a yogi, like better meal.
It literally is like from here to here.
Okay.
And so I bought this, I don't know, like 20 years ago. And he was like, okay, now this is totally extreme, Lauren. You're crazy. Like you're batshit crazy. He's like, you're going to lay on that thing? I'm like, yes, I am. And it's so soothing and relaxing. And so I always like read, I'll do 20 minutes on it before I go to bed. And he's like, fine, I'm going to try it.
Give me that thing.
First night he tries it, he falls asleep on it and he's snoring up a storm. I'm like,
She's kicking me, and I'm like, what are you doing?
so
Stop kicking me.
the funniest thing is now every night, like when we're like getting ready for bed, I bought him a navy one. I have my pink one. We like pull the bed out, and everything. And he's got his lined up and mine lined up. And then even when we travel, I have one that I always travel with, hot pink. He steals it from me, and I'm like, what do you think the maids are thinking? They're probably like, these people are really kinky.
What is
The
do they
bed
do with
and
this bed
the
and nails?
bed of nails.
That sounds interesting.
I know.
She just did acupuncture a couple weeks ago, and I've never done it before, but I've always been. I'm so like scared of the needles and whatnot. Like I just never bothered.
They invited him to come in. He was petrified. He's
Yeah.
like, no one's poking me with needles. I'm not going.
When you go to somebody that knows what they're doing,
Have you done it before? Yeah.
It's not. They don't feel it like that.
Yeah.
and it's funny too when you go in there and you know what is what is jacked up, what's not working properly, what's not functioning right, and they never put it in that spot. It's always some corresponding pressure point.
Yeah.
And when they sit there and it 5-10 minutes.
Do they include some of this stuff in pro athlete routines now? Is this
Some guys do, yeah.
Yeah, some guys do it now. Yeah.
And it's crazy, like some of the clients that we work with, the things that they request, we make happen. I mean, cold tubs on yachts and Pelotons. And
Yeah, that was my next question. Like, what is the difference between regular luxury travel and super wealth?
look at you asking such a brilliant question. I love this.
Gina, you've done this once or twice too.
This is like a fascinating place to be in this industry. And as I was talking about, kind of like my areas of expertise and just, I see it from both sides. And we have this side of wellness travel and then medical travel. Medical travel is what my dad was doing. He was seeking for a cure. He was looking for more time to save his life. Wellness travel is like kind of your soft and fluffy, a Miraval, Canyon Ranch, kind of that side of things. And I love that. We have a lot of clients that look for those kinds of trips and so forth. But the sweet spot and like where this trend in industry is going is right in the middle of both. So the wellness, medical kind of, because those individuals are a lot like Chris and myself that are very curious and also live very optimal and regimented in their everyday life. So these 35 habit stacks, we don't like to stray too far from what we do at home. So if we're going to travel, we need to make sure that where we travel, they're going to allow us to do those things and also learn something new. And same with our clients as well. So it's a matter of these properties kind of having this competitive edge, if you will, and offering new and cutting edge services to the travelers, because that's where people are. They're curious, but if they don't have the time in their everyday life to seek out, hey, I don't know much about transcendental meditation, or I don't know much about breath work. We're here to help you find the properties that are going to allow you to learn about those things that you can bring into your everyday life and start implementing it all the time at home. Or I'm going to help you find an individual or a specialist in your city that's going to allow you to keep doing that.
So where would you send somebody? It's not like you're sending them to like even like a regular nice luxury resort, like you mentioned.
I mean, it depends on what their goals are. And that's where kind of this whole travel matchmaking comes into play for us. And we're really listening closely. Is it optimal sleep you're after? Is it stress management? Is it you're trying to gain more muscle mass? Like, it depends on what their goals are. And then we align them with a property. It could be very clinical based, diagnostic properties, which I'm a huge fan of. A couple that are, some new ones recently launched. One in particular is Shaw Wellness in Mexico.
I heard of that.
Oh my gosh, big fan of that. But some people individuals aren't ready for that, and they need something that's a little bit more soft, super well, if you will. And then, we'll maybe send them to a property like that, because we need to meet them exactly where they're at. We don't want to intimidate them, and we don't want to run them off by, this is
Get a walk before you run.
What's the one that your family likes? That's the.
No, they go to India.
Oh wow! Is it Ananda?
I don't actually know what it's called, but it's like in Kerala. And my mother is a huge believer in Indian medicine and like Ayurveda and stuff like that. Yeah. So what she does is usually for her optimal health, she actually feels physically sick when she doesn't do it as often as she should. So every 6 months, what ideally she would love to do is go to this resort in India. Yeah. And it's basically 3-week, a vegan program. They do 4-person massage on you with the oils and the Ayurveda massage or whatever. They do it
massage. It's pretty good.
Yeah, it's intense. They do 3 times a day.
4 people are massaging?
Yeah, 2 to 4 people massage you. It's wild. And then you do the yoga all day. And then they plan your meals by your doshas or whatever they're called. Yeah. And it's this whole holistic treatment, and you go there with real issues. It's really a treatment retreat, right? Yeah. It's not really just a resort. Yeah. It's vegan, there's no alcohol, there's nothing. Yeah. It's very treatment first. Yeah. And she loves that. There are others that are more more luxurious, less treatment, more retreat, more spa, whatever. Yeah. But she likes the intense ones, because she's the way she feels in 3 weeks, she comes back younger, slimmer, just she's got back problems, and she doesn't have any pain when she comes back. Yeah. After an 8-hand massage,
amazing.
Yeah. So she keeps so much you have to do this. I'm I cannot leave for 3 weeks.
But that's kind of the thing that you would set up.
Yes, absolutely. And if you look at all of these properties now, everybody is adding a wellness, some component to their offerings. And the ones that are more clinical based, are more, can be intimidating to individuals, but it's really listening to our clients and meeting them where they are at in their journey and what their goals are. And it may start with the soft and fluffy, the 4-person massages, and then you graduate to or 8, or however many people.
Sorry, 8 hands, 4 people. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Everyone's touching you.
For you.
I'm a big guy. Each take a quadrant.
Well, between that and the breath work and yoga all day, and obviously and eating super clean, you're gonna feel very detoxed and great.
And from that, the hope is then you bring it into your everyday life, like I was saying, and implementing it back into your life, not running away from what your issues are, and feeling more optimal at home, because that's what my dad taught me at a very young age. And
you incorporate everything you learn.
Yeah. Also, people, the people you're working with, they want to live a long time. Because they've been, financially successful, a lot of different measures of success, but they've been financially successful, and they want to live a very long time. So it's always interesting to look at people that have a lot of reasons to live a very long time, and what they're trying to do or what they're trying to incorporate into their lifestyle. And that's what they're doing when they go to these retreats, or when they speak to both of you.
And as we know, what people look at as success changes. Every day, essentially every decade. What I thought was important when I was 18, turning pro, making X amount of money, was completely different when I was 28, now married with a young kid. Yeah. Completely different, 38 when I'm retired. and 3 kids, and now almost 50, 48, at 48, completely different again.
Yeah.
And your family and everything. And so it just, you see that people evolve.
But you don't see a lot of rich people smoking, that's for sure.
No, it's a pattern we've been noticing. The more we talk to people, the more we're realizing the more success someone has had, it's like the more they have to live for. They're so into the wellness all of a sudden.
Do you know Brian Johnson? The guy who's reversing his age, and he's doing a whole bunch of crazy stuff to figure out how to.
Like $2 million a year.
Crazy. Yeah.
He's an extreme.
Fascinating. He is.
What do
He almost looks younger than me.
almost?
Not quite.
Almost. Not quite though. Not quite. What are some of the most interesting, newer things that maybe people don't know about that I'm ultra wealthy, I want to include this in my life, or I want to go to a retreat that's doing this thing? What is something that I would be asking for? You probably do a lot of this stuff already, but you're on the cutting edge of this.
Yeah. I mean, things that they're like, I want to level up and I want to try something.
Yeah, I want to try something. What's new? What's new for rich people?
Yeah, what's new for rich people? Wow, the world is your oyster in terms of super well offerings. I mean, I would say, what are they dealing with in terms of their issues? Again, because there's endless options. I mean, especially when you have no budget. But people are interested in, peptides, stem cell, but that's getting very clinical.
Stem cells is that Panama, the capital of stem?
Yeah, in Mexico too.
In Mexico.
Yeah. And it's huge. It's the rage. So we have a lot of interest there. But that's very clinical. That can be very scary to people. But, I mean, my gosh, really in terms of basic things, I don't know. I mean, would you say that there's some crazy cutting edge things that we push?
There's cutting edge stuff, but I'm not comfortable pushing it because there's no research or limited research.
We will send clients to properties, certainly, that the doctors and the medical staff, if they're interested in that, I feel confident in them sharing that with those individuals. But am I going to push that?
I'm not going to recommend something. And she's in the same boat that is super cutting edge. There's limited data behind it, limited research. And this study showed that. Well, I can show you a study that also shows this. I mean, it's.
So what are the things that are widely accepted by the scientific community that maybe not the average person is doing right now?
Something what are we sleeping on?
Yeah. What do you feel comfortable actually recommending outside of the stuff that you have your daily routine, but there's things that you cannot include in your daily routine just because of the cost of the machine or I don't know.
Okay. Yeah. No, I like this one. So I would say the wearables, I mean, the CGM is a cost.
Yeah.
Because insurance doesn't cover it. And that's something fascinating because you're getting real-time 24/7 data on your system through a filament. You put it in and it doesn't hurt. I love biomats. I think that's something that every individual should have in their home. A PEMF mat. So it's basically like a energy charge. It's got crystals in it. There's all different ones on the market. There are some that are more powerful and more intense. It's heat therapy and crystals that go through, helps with joint pain, energy, lowering cortisol. I sit on mine all the time, like when I'm doing my deep work, computer work, anything like that. I usually lay on it and sandwich myself like a burrito before I get into the infrared sauna. So I have a long full body one and then a short mini one. So that's, an expense. Cold tubs are an expense, infrared saunas. And we've got one that is a dual chamber. So it goes traditional to infrared. Then we also have a very cutting edge. See, now you're making me reveal all our expensive stuff,
but that's cool. That's what people want to learn about.
So we have this really incredible tub and it's like a dual chamber. And it's outside. It's pretty massive. So it's got a hot tub and a cold tub. So you can flip flop from both sides. And actually, when you're immersed in the water, the studies show, and as I look at my wearables, you get more of an intense shock to the system from the heat cold shock therapy.
So you're not in the sauna, you're in a hot tub.
Yes.
So you're immersed in the water. So you go from hot water to cold water.
And your body can't sweat. And so it just that shock is really intense. And the goal with cold shock therapy is to grow your brown fat. So now I'm going to get really nerdy and scientific on you. Yes. So the brown fat we are all born with, and it's behind your neck and in your clavicle bone. And it is your most mitochondrial dense tissue. And it is what provides energy and speeds up your metabolism. And as we age, we lose it. But the only thing and the only way to grow it is through cold shock therapy. And so all this study has been done by Dr. Susanna Soberg, who is kind of Andrew Huberman's right-hand gal, and she is incredible. That's how I got certified as a thermals instructor. And he coined the term the Soberg principle. And the point is that we should all end on cold, like when we end our contrast therapy. So individuals will go from heat to cold and be like, I want to end in a hot shower or back in the sauna. Right. You're defeating the whole purpose of why you put yourself through that torture. Because yes, you want that shivering effect, that thermogenesis, that your body is trying to take that heat and like, oh my God, I'm shivering, I'm cold. And that is how we grow that brown fat. That's how we turn all of our energies on. And you increase your metabolism and all those things. So I always say to individuals, you always need to end on the cold. So getting back to our high-end products at home, we have this dual chamber outside. And in the winter, you're in the hot and then the cold. You end in the cold and you're out in nature. You do a little grounding.
Get the cold air.
Yeah.
Yep. See your eyes in the sun. Then you go into the gym, get your strength training on. And man, you're ready for a super well day ahead.
I'm laughing because the cold is her enemy. So I mean, like that's actually super interesting. So when you start to dabble in this stuff, obviously there's unlimited levels, but I think that you just have to start somewhere. And we spoke about a whole bunch of sort of morning routines, spoke about like health hacks, spoke about machines. Some of them are going to be outside people's price range. That's fine, but know all the stuff that's out there. And like all technology, eventually there's going to be this, this is going to be very commoditized at some point. So it's actually very interesting to see where it is right now. And then 5 years, it's going to be everybody can go buy it on Amazon, on Prime, Prime Day, right?
Walmart. Look at it, Walmart and Amazon Prime.
What, out of all the different diets, because I have my own diet that I eat, and obviously I'm sure you both have opinions of diets coming from professional sports background where trainers are probably super, they're very regimented, to your own sort of discovery and how it impacts your body and what you eat. You see the results with all your wearables.
Can I fix something real quick before you finish your question? It's a nutrition plan. It's not a diet. Diets are fads.
Is that how they?
Nutrition.
There you go. Yes. Nourishing nutrition.
Yes.
Look at that. He knows that contract works.
You're so good, Mr. Superwell.
Thank you.
What do you eat? Because there's so many different kinds of nutrition plans.
Nourishing nutrition.
Right? So you have let's even name them. You have like.
You can start. I mean, all I would say is some people like meat. Some people don't like meat.
Yeah.
Some people like fish. Some people don't like fish. Some people like chicken. They don't like chicken. Take the stuff that you are willing to eat and then build your plan around that.
So, I mean, getting back to glucose monitor. Yeah. That is a huge dictator of my body. And I'm not obsessed over it, but I have learned so much value and knowledge on what my bio-individual body needs. And the goal is to try to stay as level with your glucose. I mean, obviously you're going to have spikes every time you eat, as you should. But looking at that savory breakfast first thing in the morning, no sugar.
But carbs are okay.
Carbs are okay. You need carbs for energy, healthy carbs.
Because you understand I'm asking that because some people do no carbs.
That's crazy to me.
Yeah, but you know what?
And then
it's not sustainable.
And then they feel
You
terrible.
need carbs to function properly.
And also females for our hormones, you're not going to have a period if you do that. Like there are so many no-nos for that. And like healthy carbs are friends. We need those. And getting back to like the tools that I have in place for metabolic flexibility. And I breathe into this system every morning to look at where is my fat and my carb. And I kind of know, and sometimes throughout the day, if I'm like, I need more carbs, that is the fuel. That is something that we need to give our body, like sweet potatoes, brown rice, quinoa, whatever your system likes and what you enjoy. But protein forward, savory breakfast, no sweets, first thing in the morning. I've learned that coffee is my enemy, caffeine. That was a big awakening for me. I would have a 30-point jump in my glucose.
There's a big renaissance right now with people saying, "Oh, coffee's bad for you," and it depends on who you talk to.
I know, I've never heard that before.
Like coffee?
Yeah.
But her data says that it spikes her CGM, so she doesn't drink it.
But you know why that is because I'm a high energy individual where I already have like just a lot of cortisol, adrenaline going in my system first thing in the morning. That's just my own body's makeup. And so by adding the caffeine, it just spikes my cortisol, my adrenaline that much more, which dumps into your glucose. So then your glucose spikes it. And I had no clue. And I was not a big coffee drinker. I'd have 1 cup in the morning and it still would do that. Soon as I switched to matcha, then I still do my creatine, 5 milligrams, which is so vitally important for females, for bone, muscle growth, everything. So I dump that in and everything stays flatline, like just so balanced. If I work out in the gym too hard, it'll spike my glucose because, I mean, there's so much to that. But getting back to your question about food and nutrition, as soon as I finish training, I have a massive shake. It is so calorie dense. 12 ingredient protein milkshake is what I call it. Zen basil seeds. I mean, I've got tons of fiber, prebiotics, 2 different kinds of protein formulas. Like bone broth. There's so much. I've got frozen zucchini, sliced zucchini adds a creaminess to it. It's so thick, I eat it with a spoon. It's like a Wendy's milkshake. It is my pride and joy. Tons of cinnamon for inflammation. I mean, it's just, and then I spice it up depending on the season. Sometimes I'll add peppermint if it's winter, and I'll add a little mocha flavor to it. In the fall, I'll add pumpkin spice. And then always Brazil nuts for the selenium for thyroid support, 3 or 4 a day. And then, like lunch, microgreens, always, I add microgreens to everything throughout the day. I mix it with my eggs, or always a base with roasted root vegetables. Salmon, I do in the air fryer. Chicken, he grills. Steak. We vary our protein. It's very clean. It's very basic throughout the day. And I'm not opposed to some dark chocolate. I love a little nibble of dark chocolate. And yeah, what else do we?
80-20.
Yeah.
80-20.
It's not perfect all the time. Like
So what about when you go out?
Another part of, everybody, and by the way, everybody's different. Yeah. Everybody's palate's different. Everybody's system's different. So you got to figure out what works for you. It's not.
But you do have your, so everyone's system is different, but you do have like your best practices.
Yeah.
That, I mean,
you know what works for you, and then you try to, like you talk about eating the rainbow and how tight you are with yours, and it's very bland. I was super bland, and it just, you slowly add something new. Yeah. Try something new, and ultimately your palate, as you get older, it starts to change and start liking different foods. And
yeah, I'm very proud of your growth with eating the rainbow.
The development I've had and the diversification I've had in my dinner plate.
When I make him dinner, at the end of all you see on the plate is like a pyramid of vegetables that he just stacks on one side. And
listen, everyone's on a journey here. Like,
it's your own unique journey.
When I eat roasted vegetables, I'm like, it's so good. Olive oil, garlic, Brussels sprouts.
I know, but I've been getting better.
Yeah.
I've been getting better.
Did you grow up eating a lot of vegetables?
Yeah.
But you just don't love them.
Yeah.
But they're so good for you, Scott. Why aren't you eating them?
Everyone used to always make them well, right? Like growing up, we didn't all eat vegetables done deliciously like the way we would prepare them now. Yeah. So like, like a lot of times you even go to like a restaurant or a wedding or something, and they'll have like blanched boiled vegetables. And you're like, why would you ever make them like that?
You're losing all the nutritional value too.
Yeah, and that's what kids used to eat, like boiled broccoli. Yeah. Like, why would you feed your children that? But a lot of parents still do because they think it's still good. Yeah. And that's when I think people grow up with like this distaste for vegetables or whatever. Yeah. But like what Chris was referring to was like some people swear by like being vegan. They're like, not eating animal protein makes me feel my best. Some people are like, if I ate that way, I would, feel horrible.
Yeah.
So it really is individual, and it depends on,
And I think we really listen to our clients and, again, meet them where they're at. If they are plant-based, then we will align them with properties. And I'm not against that. It's just, I know what works for my system. I think he knows what works for his system. And it's about being optimal. I tried plant-based and my body hated it. Hated it. I lost my period. I mean, I lost muscle mass. And at 47, I am all about like, let's store up as much muscle as possible because I know I'm going to be losing it rapidly. And there's so many things that I try to do as a female at this age where it's like, store that up in that bank because it's going to help with osteoporosis and all these things as I continue to age and head into menopause. So, protein is very important for me.
But now there's also tests that everyone can do and see what kind of is the optimal food groups for your, I'm saying this because I've done all these tests.
Yeah.
And I found them to be hugely helpful.
Yeah.
And that really restructured the way I eat. And it did make me feel a lot better.
Yeah. And it's interesting, even like with the CGM, I have been this guinea pig and hacked all these different food, like the food order, I guess, of how you eat things. So I would have like an apple, and then I would have an apple after I had some nuts, and the change of the sugar, because when you have fat in your system first as a layer, before you have that sugar spike, it flattens the curve. But if you have the apple and the sugar spike, first thing that hits the gut, it spikes. Or walking after meals, we walk usually after every meal, at least 10 or 20 minutes, or move the body. And it's crazy because even like when we're flying, if I have a meal and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't move my body, even if I'm sitting there and I do calf raises, sitting in the seat, because your calf actually has the biggest dumper for glucose. It's crazy. If you just do calf raises, and I can lower my glucose just by doing that. It's like all these little hacks. It's
You're going to
fascinating.
get massive calves now, aren't you?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Working those calf muscles.
That's so interesting. So the goal is like ultimately out of all these diets, the takeaway is manage glucose, and that's really going to make you feel the best.
I think so. I mean, that's where I have seen the biggest change and shift in my own health and being optimal.
Yeah.
When I started really tracking that level and the spikes and so forth, and then looping it through my other wearables, the Whoop and the Aura, and looking at HRV, heart rate variability, sleep, stress management, how I work out. And it all plays into each other. And this world of technology and wearables is growing every day. And all these sensors that are coming out, like, this is just the beginning of it. It's just.
I had the founder of Whoop on, and I was chatting with him. Yes.
Yeah.
And he was saying that he can look at somebody's sleep score. There's different kinds of sleep, right? Look at somebody's sleep score. And from that sleep score, you can tell them if they have a happy marriage, happy relationship, how much money they make. Like it's why he correlates their sleep score to every.
You must be a billionaire.
Wow.
Are you a billionaire?
I wish. I should be.
But he says this is an indicator. So we can look at a sleep score and basically see how chaotic someone's life is.
Central nervous system. Yeah. And the respiratory, it's fascinating. Yeah. You guys are billionaires.
I don't know what my sleep score is. I actually have to get a Whoop. I don't have one.
What's a Whoop?
It's she's wearing it.
Oh, I thought it was an Apple Watch.
Yeah.
No, it looks the same. It's like one of the actually Whoop is a wild story because I think they're multi-billion-dollar company now, and it's one of the only companies that has competed with Apple and all the other wearables that came from these huge tech companies.
They actually, Justin Thomas was wearing it the year he came back in the PGA Championship and won, and they showed his heart rate when he had to make a putt to take the lead. And his heart rate, you could see his heart rate, and he was so calm in this pressure-packed moment. It was controlled his emotions and controlled himself, made this putt. You could just see his heart rate.
And that's where I was telling you when I'm in the sauna, it naturally really taxes your system and your sympathetic nervous system. The fight or flight is like, damn, it's hot in here, especially when you've gotten to like 30 minutes at 150 degree temperature. And I won't, and if I test the boundaries and I won't do my breath work, and I'll just challenge myself and I'll do like an arm workout in there. And my body's like, what are you doing? As soon as I go into the cold tub, it's really going crazy because I just like to check and like see, how far can I test this? And then really get it spiked up. And then as soon as I do my breath work, like I love like a 4-7-8, very simple, deep from the diaphragm, bringing it up, holding it for 7 seconds, and a huge exhale with a big, like release. Within a minute, I can take it from over 130 down to 55. And I watch that, and that is crazy. And then I look at the glucose and how it just goes down too. As he was saying, that's the central nervous system. In a minute, how I change that. 1 minute versus, geez, do I need a pill to control that? Like that is the power of the mind. And so much of kind of getting back to
Discipline, the discipline that you have.
Yeah, discipline, but also, like, okay, I have these genes for cancer cells in my body. And if we live in this stress body and I'm constantly lighting up my central nervous system, what is that going to do to those free radicals? That's going to set everything on fire in my body. And if you want to talk and get really nerdy about epigenetics, that's the environment that we're putting ourselves in. And getting back to like super well living, and my whole mission in my own life and for my children and for individuals in my community is to teach them ways of calming that system so we keep all that at bay, because it's the environment we're living in. And I am doing everything in my power to calm the fire of my cells in my body. And I'm teaching that to my children. And that's powerful. I don't have it all figured out. I mean, I don't know what the future holds for my body, but I do firmly believe that by looking at my system and how I can keep that all at bay and calm that from within, I'm doing a good job. And I'm proud of that. And I love to share it. I love to share it with my children. And like I said, it's protective body armor that's basically free.
I think it's important because I think that the way that most people's lives are structured, like you mentioned, you don't know what the future is, but I can guarantee you the way that the average person lives their life, it's definitely not going to be, it's definitely not going to help.
Yeah.
It's going to hurt.
Yes. Yeah. Like I was just talking to a gal last night, a good friend of ours at dinner, and she doesn't have any family history of cancer, but she talked about the environment she grew up in as a child. And it was a very toxic environment. Her parents argued and had a very tumultuous marriage. And she had cancer at a very young age. I'm not going to talk about all the details for her privacy, but she firmly believes it was the environment she grew up in. And, I know some people don't believe in all of that, but I'm a firm believer in it. And I'm mindful of what I still do in terms of Western medicine. And I get colonoscopies every year. And every single year, I get polyps that are precancerous. Had I not started doing that when I was 34, when I started doing it, I would for sure have colon cancer. I wouldn't even be here. So yeah, there is a place for Western medicine, but I'm mindful of doing those things in practice with the other things, those holistic healing modalities in my tool belt that are keeping all of those things at bay. And, I get mammograms and all those things from the breast cancer side of things. So it's just, you really have to marry both sides of things. And I'm off after you all the time about doing it too. You got a colonoscopy.
I did. Yeah. Last year.
Yeah.
Yeah. I lost like 4 pounds. It was good. Actually, I was in the middle of 75 hard.
Oh my God.
So I had to.
Yeah, you really dropped.
I was in the middle of 75 hard. So you got to do what you got to do the day before. Yeah. So I did my walk, started my protocol, went in, woke up, I did a walk, then I did my workout late. Just like it was a production trying to fit it all in, but I did.
We need to get on this.
Yeah, you have to be. Yeah, I think that's the whole point.
I have to say,
you've done it. I didn't realize how into this you were. I knew you were into it, but I didn't know you were this into it. I didn't know you had this whole routine set up. But But you have a reason. That's why. So the issue is when like, I don't have a history of cancer in my family, but then, and I do believe that being stressed out all the time, and I do believe that, you know, your cortisol being through the roof all the time probably doesn't help your chances of not getting cancer. So I think that people who don't have a history are probably the most susceptible because they're going to be blindsided by it.
Yeah. And the interesting thing is, this friend of mine that we were with last night for dinner, who had this cancer, when she had all of her blood work done, when they found the cancer, the doctor pulled her aside and said, hey, are you dealing with something really traumatic in your life most recently? Because your cortisol is through the roof. And she was like, no, like, this is my state. This is normal. And then I think they went back into years of previous blood work and they looked at her cortisol for years and years. She had been living in that state, so she didn't know any different. And I, in talking to her, I think that she grew up always just in that hyper cortisol, sympathetic nervous, fight or flight, on fire all the time, fueling that. And I believe, you know, in society now, we're just living in this place. And that's why we're seeing it pop up more and more. And, you know, I'm not saying that's the end all be all and the reason for it all, but I do think that it exacerbates the situation and speeds up the process. Like I look at my mom, like when my dad had his stroke, she didn't have any cancer, but after 4 months of taking care of him and all the stress, all of a sudden she got breast cancer, like out of the blue. And then she got it again as he got sicker and sicker and was in and out of hospice and so forth 2 times. So yeah, I mean, I am very passionate about it. And as I keep saying, I look at it like a protective body armor I put on myself, and knowledge is power. And I do it for myself, for my family, for our kids. And if individuals are curious, I'm here to be a guide. And I really don't, you know, I look at this as a gift that maybe God put in my world of an imperfect moment of burnout where it really smacked me in the face. And until you go through that hardship, I never would be in this place sitting on this couch talking about this had 2011 not happened to me. I would have been floating through life, probably playing golf, tennis, pickleball, you know, like riding horses, things that I love to do. But after that happened to me, and when I started Well Inspired Travels and all that I've gone through in my life, I feel like it would be a disservice to who I am as an individual if I was not here sharing my story. And it is my mission and like everything that I'm passionate about in serving people. And I'm excited about it.
I'm excited for you.
Lights me on fire. I can see that.
Yeah. Very proud of her. Taking it to the next level. She's leveled up.
Oh, yes. Look at you.
You both leveled up. You both leveled up. What do we not talk about?
I don't know. We've been going for about 3 hours.
We have been going for 3 hours. This has been a good one. It's been good.
It's funny because we live in Miami, which is a city full of people that are now obsessed with biohacking and wellness and all these things. Every single person we meet is like, cold plunge sauna, come over for cold plunge or sauna and this and that and all these things, peptides.
Yeah.
And no one has ever explained it in the way that actually made me want to try it like you have. Because I would just always look at them and I'd be like, you're being woohoo and weird.
Yeah.
And this is not for me. You guys are all too like...
But I think because a lot of it is trendy, people jumping on bandwagon.
And every time something is too trendy, I get very turned off.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, before I moved to Miami, I was like into astrology. Now I'm just like, oh my God, this is crazy because everyone here thinks they're like, you know, it's like weird. So people have a way of turning you off things when they're too into it and they can't explain why they're into it, right? That's the thing. You do such a beautiful job explaining the reasoning behind everything. And I'm like, oh, I could try this. This makes sense. I understand why now, you know? So thank you for that.
I really appreciate that. It means a lot to me. And that's really my intention, is to not overwhelm individuals, tell my story. And really the hardship of it, that was the weakest moment of my life and a scary time. I'm not proud of it, but hey, you know what? It's a reason to share it with somebody like you, because it's hopefully will help you understand, like, here are the possible benefits of meeting you where you're at with what you're going through. And it all is so interwoven. And I appreciate that because I try to make it digestible. Without intimidating. Yes. 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 So it's, I'm always here for questions and I mean, I've got books upon books and.
Well, I will definitely be hitting you up.
Okay. So this is very important though. So still did we go into everything that you wanted to go into? Cause I think we went through a lot.
We did. We covered Edmonton.
Very diverse.
We covered.
It was. I liked it.
Super well we covered.
I
I mean, well, the digital courses are going to be coming out.
So where do you want to send people? So
where should people find?
First of all, also the socials, so they can go follow you.
You're good at that.
If you want to go, so for her stuff, wellinspiredtravels.com, Lauren_Pronger on Instagram.
Yes,
that's probably the best place to find a lot of the information. Is on Instagram.
That's where the fun happens.
LinkedIn.
TikTok, because
for the younger generation.
This 47-year-old mom's trying to be cool on TikTok.
Your content on Instagram is good though. You should put it on TikTok. Yeah.
And then my stuff, chrispronger.com. I got my speaking platform. Talk about a lot of stuff that I've done. Instagram at Chris Pronger, Twitter at the Chris Pronger. Right? No, opposite. Opposite. At the Chris Pronger is Instagram, at Chris Pronger's Twitter, and I'll send you up it all.
And then this all goes in the show notes.
LinkedIn. Same and LinkedIn.
Newsletter.
She's got a newsletter she's going to be doing. So people want to sign up on Well Inspired Travels. There's a form.
Yep, it takes you to my landing page.
Her landing page, and on there you can sign up for newsletter. And so all this stuff, she's going to be geeking out with all these.
The digital course is coming out in January. So it'll be phase 1, which is Kickstart Super Well. Okay. And then it's going to be Super Well Glow Up is phase 2. And then it's going to be Super Well Superstar Mastery. So you gradually get from phase 1 to phase 2 because.
So this is really taking all the stuff that all these high net worth, ultra high net worth are paying for on these trips.
Correct.
And then you're turning it into courses people can learn how to do this.
And breaking it down in very simplified steps to take in their everyday life.
Yes. Without the expense, like I have hacks that, hey, you don't want to go spend $8,000 on a cold tub? I'm going to give you a bazillion other ways to do it. Cool. So it's kind of the different phases. But starting with phase 1, and I'll go through the 8 pillars in each one of the digital courses. So it's like well aging, nourishing nutrition, optimal sleep, nature connection. I mean, there's all the different, and then I kind of
hacks, strategies, tips for each one.
Yep. Personal stories. So I always start with a personal story, which you've heard a lot of them. And I'm very open about here are the struggles. So it makes sense because that's the connection. You hear, as you were saying, and as you were saying, which means so much to me because that's feedback I want to hear is I get what you're saying now. I really make that connection because I'm not here just spitting stuff out of my mouth because I'm like, oh, I do this and I feel awesome. That doesn't, good. Yeah. You're going to be like, done. Okay, turn you off. Like, move on to the next thing. So it's my personal stories with each one of the pillars. And then it's usually a client's experience and where I've met them in their journey and how I've helped them optimize. And then I go through usually 3 to 5 lessons in each one of the pillars. And those are whether it's a breath work, a way to calm the system, or a simple technique, or a recipe, journaling. It's always makes sense and it all loops through and they actually all interconnect, all 8, so that you're feeling an incredible biorhythm through all of it.
I love that. Yeah. Chris, I also want to give you, I'm actually super curious. So where is your content going? Because I know you're going to start a podcast together, but where are you focusing on right now? So are you doing your own thing as well? Like what's the content strategy?
Speaking platform, just trying to help people level up and serve people in the manner with which, whether it's people looking to create culture, be better leaders, take that part of their life to the next level, or just walk through my journey. People, they see the end, they see the championships and the trophies and all the stuff over here, but they forget all the stuff we talked about earlier on, the bad times, the DUI and the jail and all the other stuff that we talk about, and not really knowing who I was and fighting against the system and caving under the pressure of being a high draft pick and not living up to your potential and being booed at home and all these things that went on in my early career, and just realizing how I needed to and what I needed to do to kind of dig myself out of that and get the most out of my talent. And we all have decisions and choices to make. What are you willing to sacrifice? What are you willing to do to be successful? And we all are put to the test, and finding that inner character and developing the character to take yourself to that next level.
Your podcast is going to be good. Your podcast is going to be good. Okay, so I always ask this at the end. I think it's great, and you both have to answer from your own perspective. So it's not that crazy a question. This has been a softball interview. This has been like a. No, I'm not gonna just like throw
send you an ice cream cone.
No, no. You've both been amazing. First of all, thank you, because you went deep in everything, and I think the audience got like two very useful sort of like streams of content, and sort of two very useful lives that you sort of unpacked in front of us. So I appreciate you being so personal about it, because it's not easy to go into the origin story behind the real origin story, not the BS origin story, the real reasons as to why you both are where you are today. But the best part about where you're at now is you can look back and, hindsight's 20/20, and you wish you did this thing, that thing differently, or maybe you don't, because maybe it made you who you are. But if you could go back and you tell your younger self one thing, both of you each, what would that thing be?
I would say, don't take life so serious. Don't be so hard on myself, and don't care so much about what other people think. I think I'm a perfectionist at fault, and I think I've always been so hard on myself, and I think I've always cared as a female about what other people think, and and I'm at this phase in life where I am so free and so excited to share all the imperfections, as I was telling you all. Like I never have held that back and not shared it, but now I feel like it really gives a lot of credibility to my journey, and there's a lot of power in that. And I love being an individual that's saying, I'm the furthest thing from perfect, and hearing from others when they hear that journey and they're sharing like, oh my gosh, I love that you're letting your guard down. And then they open up and provide so much to me that also gives me great value. So I guess that's 3 things. So I got an F for that.
3 things are fine.
Yes, that's it.
I would say trust yourself. You're there for a reason. Too often, I think early on, I was being told who to be, how to act, what to do, and that's what I was pushing against. That's what I was unwilling to buy into. I would steer into it and steer out of it, and I think it stunted my growth and didn't allow me to make the mistakes early on that I needed to make to become now who I am years later. And there's obviously the financial stuff, and there's all kinds of mistakes we make that what I know now, I wish I would know back then. Shit, maybe I would be a billionaire.
Maybe, you never know.
But I'm a firm believer everything happens for a reason. I tell my kids this all the time. Stop looking in the rearview mirror. You're going this way. Don't worry about what's back there. You got to worry about, use the lessons you learned, implement those into your life today and in the future, and continue to grow. That's why it's in the rearview mirror. Yeah. It's a life lesson, but it's not who you are, and it's what's helped you become who you are, not who you are. And too often I was pushing against that all the time, and it's taken, I don't really give a shit what people think, but when you're young now, but when you're young, you kind of get steered in directions and you get told how to act. Oh, you can't say that, you can't do this. And I'm like, you know what, I'm young. Like, when am I supposed to make the mistakes? Like I tell her about our kids, I'm like, now's the time for them to make these mistakes. They're not really going to do too much. The older you get, the bigger the mistakes.
Yeah. And you have to learn those early. Yeah. Actually, I think that's why I actually love the concept of not having to, like people ask, well, if you could redo one thing or do something differently. And I think the answer is always no, because that's
what's helped form who you are.
Yeah.
And create your character. Yeah. And your resolve and the good and the bad. Yeah. And the makeup of who you are. And, we talk about culture and locker rooms and all these things. It's not all good. There's bad too. And that's what creates that culture is the...
And by the way, if you don't recognize the bad, then you'll never know what good looks like either.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Or if you've never failed. Like if a kid skirts through life and gets a participant ribbon everywhere they go and they think they won. Well, how do they know what failing looks like?
Wait till real life slaps them in the face.
Exactly. Because life is not fair, as we all know.
Thank you so much for coming. Thank you for coming to our home. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, your beautiful home. My goodness.
You are our first guest in this house, and we're very excited that it's you guys because the conversation has been so amazing. You've been so vulnerable, so open, and as Scott said, shared so much of your personal lives and your, trials and tribulations and wins. So I feel like a lot of people will really get a lot of insights from this conversation. I mean, myself included. So I can't wait to continue getting to know you, and thank you.
Thank you guys. Appreciate you so much.